Coming home. Dowd. Beloved. 1. Test my thinking. Exercising good judgment. Our journey through the Torah and prophets has led us to heaven's door and has even opened it for us. And now, we have reached the next step in our journey. Dowd's psalms provide us with a peek inside while conveying the identity of someone very special who will be welcoming the covenant's children upon their arrival. Dowd will continue to be our guide to these things. In this regard, he is unique among the billions who have lived on our blue planet. He was chosen and anointed to be our prophet and exemplar, shepherd and storyteller, our Messiah and King. And he is Yahowah's beloved son. These are his love letters to his Father, our God. It is indeed a privilege to sit alongside and listen to him sing about his relationship with Yahuwah. And as we do, feel encouraged to apply what he says to your own life, looking forward to a similar outcome. As was the case with every previous psalm, the 26th Mizmor was composed to guide our steps through life and to God. Dowd's every statement is a gem whose facets are a delight to explore. It begins. Of Dowd, La Dowd, 2, 4, about, concerning, according to, and with respect to the beloved. You have chosen to be decisive with me, litigating and vindicating as well as judging and condemning through me, Shabat any, of your own volition. You actually want me to be judgmental while making informed and rational decisions regarding executing justice. Cal imperative second person masculine singular, Yahowah, Yahowah, God's name transliterated as directed by his Torah, instructions on his YAHOWAH, existence and his role in our shalom, reconciliation, because it is true, KY, I. Any, with my integrity intact, B.A. Tom any, with an innocence about me while being fully forthright and honest myself, I have walked, journeying through life, Halak, and in, Wa B.A. Yahowah, Yahowah, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his YAHOWAH, existence and his role in our shalom, reconciliation as our, Eloah, God, I have trusted and relied, Batach. I have confided and depended, Cal perfect, without wavering, Lo Ma'ad. Without stumbling, backsliding, slipping, or shaking, Cal imperfect. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung /Psalm 26 verse 1. We are picking up right where we left off. Relative to Yahuwah, the fate of every soul is determined by our response to Dowd. Those who accept the fact that he fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim will be vindicated by his sacrifice. Those who reject and deny what the Messiah has done will be judged and condemned. This will be especially true of those lost in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, where Dowd's lives and lyrics are grossly misrepresented to promote worthless counterfeits. Shabat any might have been rendered as, you want to actually judge me, but, scribed as it was in a Cal imperative, doing so would have been in conflict with God's approach to his children and inappropriate in a father-son relationship. Therefore, I translated it in a manner which is meaningful in this context while also reflecting Shabat's etymology, which is to be decisive by making informed and rational decisions. And in this way, Dowd's pronouncement means that Yahuwah will use him as the standard by which we are all measured. And in particular, since Dowd carried the guilt of every covenant member to Sheol, depositing it there never to be seen again, including his own, those who capitalize upon what he has done are also perceived to be innocent. In a way, this drives to the heart of all three micro-EY sacrifices, that of the Passover lamb, the journey to Sheol on Matzah, and Teruah's red heifer. Yahuwah wants to absolve his children of guilt without he, himself, being guilty of being capricious and unreliable. Therefore, he established a mechanism by which the guilt of those he loves could be borne by another. As is the case with Dowd, all evidence against us has been thrown so far out of court that it has vanished, and the judge has fairly ruled that we are innocent. Then, in a different way, the religious and political rebellion of the mortal remnant of Yisrael will be washed away and incinerated as a result of red heifer's sacrifice. Further, God wants us to be decisive and exercise good judgment. It is not only the key to understanding but, also, engenders a sense of morality, of right and wrong, fairness, justice, and compassion. Dowd recognized that character counts with Yahuwah. Beyond all else, our Messiah has integrity. When thinking rationally rather than emotionally, he can be trusted. While none of us measure up to Dowd, at least apart from Moses, I am confident that Yahuwah is pleased with my decisiveness, the fact that I am informed and rational and that I am consistently judgmental. I am certain that he considers me trustworthy and reliable among men and as a man of character and integrity. I have my faults, as did my king, but like him, I have journeyed with Yahuwah these past 23 years, beginning on Towrah in 2001, year 5968 Yah, without wavering. And should anyone view that as boastful, instead of an accurate assessment of something vitally important to God and his people, I have 35 books on the shelf and another 10,000 hours of recorded audio on this subject which say otherwise. Moreover, that's the point. Dowd was not bragging. He was telling the truth. And we should seek to emulate him. And in this regard, since I am the Adam Apara bloody red and productive man serving as the red heifer, Yahuwah has already rendered his verdict, stating that I am perfect in his eyes. And I don't suppose it would be wise to argue with him. Besides, with Yahuwah and his Torah, this is not extraordinary. We are not trying to be perfect, it is God who uses what Dowd has done to perfect us. All members of God's covenant family are perfect because all evidence against us has been removed and taken to Sheol which cannot be seen from heaven. Moreover, this suggests that we become an open book, and we look like his book when our lives reflect his Torah guidance. The more decisive and judgmental we are regarding it, the more value and integrity we will manifest. And like our Messiah, our lives will not waver in our walk with Yah. If that is too much to ask, then you may not be cut out for life in the covenant. It is an open book test. We are given all of the answers, and our Father is grading the results. Best of all, he is tremendously biased in our favor. Moreover, as children of the covenant, we are enveloped in the Ruach Kodesh set-apart spirit, and she obliterates all of the darkness in us, making us appear perfect. So, this shouldn't scare anyone. You want to test me, examining and assessing me, back on any, it is your will to investigate me and put me to the test, proving my mettle, cal imperative second person masculine singular, Yahowah, Yahowah, God's one and only name pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence for our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, because you want to reveal my true nature by providing an opportunity to achieve your desired outcome with me, Waneza any, your will is for me to experience success by training me to achieve, proving my mettle, peel imperative second person masculine singular. Your will is for me to give you permission to demonstrably refine, Saraf, you and I want to remove impurities by perfecting, cal imperative paragogic he cohortative second person masculine singular, my emotions, kilya any, my kidneys, representing my passions, disposition, motivations, loves, and inclinations, and my judgment, waleb any, my thinking, thoughts, and decision making. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung Psalm 26 verse 2. Each verb was scribed in a volitional mood, revealing the will and desire of the individual being addressed, Yahowah in second person in the imperative, or speaking, Dowd in first person in the cohortative. God enjoyed testing Dowd because his son often proved his character and value. Therefore, father and son sought out opportunities to overcome challenges and prevail. The more often we succeed, the more our capabilities and confidence grow. And in this way, Dowd was given the greatest responsibility of all, fulfilling Chag Matzah. To stay on schedule, it needed to be done correctly, in accordance with the Torah, and on the right dates in year 4000 Yah. There would be no second chances to get this done right. God had to have supreme confidence that Dowd would endure the pain and isolation without relenting or compromising. And to some extent, the same is true with the man from Edom who will serve as the red heifer on Towrah in 2033. There is no plan B. And since Yahowah does not work alone, he must be as confident in his chosen implements as we are of him. Through many hundreds of exacting and exalting prophecies, Yahowah revealed what he expected his son to accomplish. And Dowd did not disappoint. Although, it would be fair to say that his people did, failing miserably. But even in their failure, there was an opportunity opened because God found another who was receptive and willing to follow in Dowd's footsteps. Collectively, this demonstrates that God is far more interested in us working with him and achieving something worthwhile than he is in us doing worthless things such as praying, bowing down, or worshipping him. It even suggests that while being observant is good, responding by engaging is even better. Further, rather than wish our heartaches and challenges away, we should look at them as opportunities to prevail and to show our mettle. Heaven, therefore, isn't about lounging on overstuffed couches while occasionally flapping our wings. Just as Adam was given the opportunity to work with Yahowah in the garden, we will be afforded the same with the universe. God values work because it not only builds character and provides a sense of accomplishment, but because those who achieve success become more confident and capable, as well as more interesting. The last sentence is delicious. Dowd interjected a pair of volitional moods to say that God wants us to choose what he knows is best for us. He will not force himself on us, even when he's right and realizes that we may pay a hefty price for being stubbornly wrong. To refine our hearts and minds, we must give God permission. Dowd did, and so should we. In the ancient world, one's kidneys were the source of emotions and the heart served as the seat of judgment. And while they are seldom seen together in the Torah and prophets as Dowd has used them, in modern parlance he told Yahowah that he wanted to have his heart and mind, emotions and thinking refined. One of the many reasons the Messiah was eager for Yahowah to challenge him and develop his character is that he knew he had lived his life in a manner that was pleasing to God. Further, he realized that his father loved him. Indeed, this is because, KY, your steadfast love and genuine kindness, Chesed, Ada, your loyal devotion, unfailing compassion, and unrelenting favoritism, are conspicuous before my eyes, Lanegd, I and any, correspond to what I am witnessing. And so, I walk independently from others, Halak, I journey through life unaffected by outside influences, social, religious, or political constraints, Hitpeel perfect first person singular, trusting and relying upon your honesty and enduring integrity, BA, Emeth, Ada, with your dependable and unwavering commitment to the truth. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung Psalm 26 verse 3. This is an especially insightful use of the Hitpeel stem because it reveals that Dowd was not influenced by the kinds of things which would sway lesser men. His walk with Yahowah was independent of political and religious persuasion. That makes him one in a million. And then when we factor in how well Dowd knew Yahowah, how closely they had worked together, how completely he trusted God, the extent of his integrity, the magnitude of his mental acuity and emotional maturity, when combined with his exemplary character, capability, and courage, we are witnessing one in 100 billion, the most interesting man in the history of the world. And in these words, you are witnessing his reintroduction to his people and to all humankind. It is fair to say that Yahowah is an acquired taste, one that must be cultivated. He is overwhelmingly different from the gods men have made to impose religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as well as countless others preceding them. Men have used belief systems to control and fleece humanity, while Yahowah is offering a family relationship to elevate and emancipate his creation. For example, the Almighty is opposed to the things men do with their gods. He condemns faith, hates religion, and never wants to be worshipped. He does not listen to those who pray, and he tells those who bow down to stand up. He does care what we call him and is vehemently opposed to a designation other than Yahowah. This known, God is not all-loving. He not only views hate as a virtue, we cannot be compassionate or loving until we know who and what to hate and how to properly express our righteous indignation. God repeatedly affirms that he has inspired and authored a single witness, one he revealed over the course of 1,000 years. It is in writing and is comprised of his Torah guidance, Nabi, prophetic revelations, and Mizmor-inspired prose. He even provides a test so that we can know for certain what is truthful and reliable as opposed to what men have contrived. Yahowah does not want to save everyone and would prefer to have a personal relationship with one in a million. He has no interest in being popular. He is not the God of the majority. And while he is pro-choice and pro-life, he is anti-religious, apolitical, and non-conspiratorial. He does not compromise, ever. God plays favorites. We were obviously not created equal, and equal opportunity is a myth. More often than not, Yahowah chooses those with whom he wants to develop a relationship. From there, how we proceed is our choice. Yahowah wants to be our Father, not our Lord. He is so adamant about this, God uses this title, Lord, to describe Satan. There is no such thing as human rights. Men and women are animals, albeit with a seldom used neshama conscience such that very few think their way to God. Our souls are mortal and most cease to exist after death. There is no such thing as bodily resurrection as is touted in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. It would be counterproductive, even if possible. Yahowah is not making it easy for us to know him, to accept his invitations, to engage in the covenant family, or to comprehend how every detailed stroke of his portrayal of man over the past 6,000 years fits together to form a single portrait of perfection. The reason that there are 35 volumes under the Yahowah brand averaging over 600 pages is because there is a lot to learn, and even then, to transition from knowing to understanding, we must find or be shown the appropriate connections between things. And only then can we form a relationship with Yahowah that is consistent with the conditions he has set forth. While God created the universe and gave us life, he is not obligated to share it or prolong it apart from his Berith and YYV3C1, where he is honor-bound. Unlike humans, when he chooses to curtail the life of troublesome individuals to protect his family, there should be no complaints because they wouldn't have had a life to squander without him. Therefore, the extinction of the overtly political, religious, conspiratorial, and militant, especially the anti-Semitic, will occur appropriately and without apology. If you prefer a God with softer edges, who is more forgiving and tolerant, even more popular, a God who is offering salvation and decadent rewards based on irrational beliefs or hostile behaviors, then Yahowah isn't for you. If you want the extent of your God offered up in a sound bite, a slogan, or a confession of faith, you should look elsewhere. If you want your God to be more like you, then consider Judaism, Christianity, Islam, or progressive politics. But let me be emphatic on this point, I know Yahowah and I love him. The more I have come to understand who he is, what he is offering, and what he expects in return, the more I have come to trust and rely upon him. When it comes to our walk with God, Yahowah wants our halak to be hitpeel. And yet, in spite of Dowd's declaration, Judaism has this backward. For the religious, halakha the way has become a set of laws which control every aspect of the lives of the Jewish people. So, while Christians have contrived a religion out of plundering Dowd, Judaism has risen by ignoring Hamashiach. Everything that is important to Yahowah is kodesh, set apart, special, uncommon, and thus unpopular. It is why God will never be associated with any religion, political party, cultural tradition, or societal custom. This is one of life's greatest ironies. The institutions which claim to be right based on their popularity are all wrong as a result of it. The religions which claim to control access to God actually preclude it. The realization that we must be set apart from societal, religious, and political influences to approach Yahowah should not be surprising because it is the first thing Yahowah asked of Abraham. Nothing has changed in this regard. Therefore, by using the hitpeel stem to frame his walk with God, Dowd is once again setting an example we would be wise to emulate. Moreover, this is the lone prerequisite for the covenant. We cannot approach God until we disavow all former religious and political entanglements. The introduction and conclusion of the prophet's statement also speak to participation in the covenant. It is Yahowah's chesed enduring love that makes living as part of his family so enjoyable. Further, when we walk to him along the path he has provided through the YYV3C1 in accordance with the second condition of the covenant, we find his chesed favoritism, affection, kindness, compassion, and mercy. Even then, in the third condition of the covenant, we are asked to trust and rely upon Yahowah, just as Dowd was affirming he had done. Providing us with tangible examples of how he went about his independent and unaffiliated halak walk in accordance with the hitpeel stem, Dowd explains. I do not live with, approach or meet with, sit or remain with, lo, yashab im, the little people, math, the insignificant lice and parasites, who are vain, fraudulent, and worthless, shawah, who are futile and destructive, idolatrous liars, inconsequential and deceitful, who speak false and empty words. And with the ignorant hypocrites, the charlatans who conceal and cover over the truth, balam, so with the pretentious pretenders, I am not associated and do not pursue, lo, bow, I make a habit of not coming or going with them. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung /Psalm 26 verse 4. I love this about Yahowah and his son, Dowd. They have no time for or interest in hypocrites and charlatans. They are not trying to debate or save the religious or the political. While they condemn them individually and collectively through their testimony, they never approach them or engage with them. They do not associate with the religious or political either. I abhor and shun, saying, I hate, loathe, and detest, responding adversely to, the assembly, community, and congregation, kahal, the crowd, throng, mob, and company, of immoral and ignorant countrymen, raa, of loud-mouthed citizens who are wrong, evil, distressing, and troublesome. And with the wickedly vexing and condemnable, rasha, the unethical and unrighteous, I will not live, approach, sit, or remain, lo, yashab. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung /Psalm 26 verse 5. Dowd's verb of choice was brilliant in that the negation of yashab reveals that, by having chosen to walk apart from society's most controlling influences, he avoided the bad actors. He yashab did not reside around, meet with, or have sit-down discussions with the math little people. He was not seeking a consensus or to be popular. Math was also an ingenious choice. The most seldom used word to convey men, specifically, and people, generally comes with baggage. A math is a louse and, in the plural, represents irritating lice and insignificant parasites. I dare say that you'd find them today in Israel as Knesset members and rabbis. The Haredi are parasites, as are many progressives. The Messiah and prophet they refuse to recognize or acknowledge referred to those who influence lesser individuals as shawah, vain, fraudulent, and worthless, both futile and destructive. And in this regard, it should be noted that shawah directs our attention to their most deceitful and degrading act, violating the third statement Yahuwah etched on the first tablet, instructing us to never fraudulently diminish the value of Yahuwah's name. Shawah appears twice within it to describe behavior which is eternally unforgivable. The removal of Yahuwah's name from his Torah, Nabi, and Am people, such that they neither know it nor benefit from it, remains the most egregious crime ever committed by the religious. These villainous men he was avoiding were Elam hypocrites and charlatans concealing the truth. And should you be searching for names, you'd be on the right track with Ahab and Jezebel, Peter and Paul, Akiba and Maimonides, Muhammad and his pet rock, Allah. The great infamy of these pretentious pretenders has become evident because they plastered over the truth. Their fame came neither from their reasoning nor their originality but from replacement philology, misappropriating, and counterfeiting. With such men, Dowd remained unassociated. By such men, Dowd was victimized. Against such men, I speak and write. It also appears that, while he could let his hair down on occasion, Dowd may have been a bit of an introvert. Either that, or he preferred Yah's company and disdained that of societal influencers. He saned, loathed and shunned kahal large groups of people who assembled together. The Messiah eschewed political and religious gatherings. Further, the king of Israel saw his countrymen as immoral and ignorant. The majority of Jews in his day were raa loudmouthed, wrong, and troublesome. He went on to call them rasha, wickedly vexing and condemnable, unethical and unrighteous. Therefore, rather than the Messiah coming to exonerate and save the religious and political of Israel, he will have nothing to do with them and will avoid them like the plague. In fact, he will be exterminating and incarcerating them. It's little wonder that the Haredim are expecting a Messiah with a different disposition. The prophet will wash his hands of such sewage. I bathe my hands, rackets yet any, I wash and cleanse myself so that I am spotless and unsoiled, in innocence, ba Nikiwan, with moral impeccability and freedom from guilt. And I go around, Wasabab, I turn to and am surrounded by, your altar, Mizbeach, Ada, the site of your sacrifice, Yahowah, Yahowah, transliterated as directed by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation, Mizmor/Psalm 26 verse 6, to hear, Lashama, with the voice, Ba Kaul, of thanksgiving, Towrah, of thankfulness, and to enumerate and quantify, Wawasapar, all of your wonderful deeds, Kol Pala Ada, all of your astounding accomplishments, awesome nature, and amazing acts. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 26 verse 7. While it isn't overtly stated here, since we now know that my sacrificial offering as the Adam Apara bloody red man who has been productive, more commonly known as the red heifer, will be set ablaze on Yahuwah's ultimate altar, Dowd may be acknowledging what is to come. This connection is further advanced by the realization that the resulting ash combined with the flowing water will remove the guilt of every receptive individual in Yerushalayim, including the priest officiating the event. Up to this point, I will have served as the cowl voice of Yahuwah, and it is by God engaging in this way that the remnant is cleansed in preparation for Yahuwah's arrival. Beyond these connections, we are confronted by the fact that the most articulate man who ever lived listened to God before he spoke for him. That is a lesson for the rest of us. And as a result of hearing what Yahuwah had to say regarding his sacrifices on our behalf, Dowd was thankful. He was aware of the wonder of it all and said so. The king of Israel, God's prophet, our Messiah and shepherd, the Son of God, knew and proclaimed Yahuwah's name. So, what justification do lesser men have for removing and denying it? Yahuwah, Yahowah, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, I love, Ahab, the provisions and support, Ma'on, the care and concern associated with the abode and dwelling place, of your home and family, Beth, Ada, and the place, Wamakaum, the source and home, your glorious presence, Kabod, Ada, your manifestation of power, rewarding gift and respect. Tabernacles, Mishkan, dwells within a tent. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 26 verse 8. Foremost among Yahuwah's provisions is his name. So much is lost when it is removed from this testimony that one has to wonder why rabbis were willing to commit their souls to Sheol for perpetuating this egregious crime. No other act in all of human history, not even the Holocaust, has robbed more Jews of their souls than rabbis despising what they should have loved. And what, may I ask, was and remains the justification for stealing and then hiding this exceptionally valuable asset? What is gained by removing Yahuwah's name from his testimony and his people? Is the answer as obvious as it appears since rabbis are named instead of God in all of the books which comprise Judaism? In rendering the previous prophetic declaration, we are afforded the opportunity to translate Ma'on as dwelling place or provisions and support. I chose the latter because Beth already speaks of a home for the family. At this time and place, Yahuwah's home on earth was a tent known as the Mishkan Tabernacle. It was the furthest thing from ostentatious, as is God's style. Dowd loved it because it embodied Yahuwah's glorious presence. As he had been in life, Dowd wanted the same for his soul in the hereafter. Do not gather, al-Thazaf, you will not harvest, Kal imperfect Joseph second person masculine singular, my soul, Nipesh any, my consciousness and ability to be observant and responsive, with those who miss the way and lead astray, im Chada, with the misdirected and misleading, nor my life, Che any, with bloodthirsty individuals, Wa im Ishdam, Mizmor/Psalm 26 verse 9, in whose hands, Asher ba Yad, there are evil devices and spurious plots, Hem Zima, these are shameful plans and infamous schemes. Further, their right hand, Yem and Hem, is filled with bribes, tributes, and gifts, male, Shachad. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 26 verse 10. The most debilitating thing the religious can do is mislead the people, whether it is about Yahuwah's name, Dowd's role as the Messiah and Son of God, or the importance of the Berith and Mikri Y. And yet, other than there is nothing too redeeming to be found in the Talmud. And speaking of nefarious plots, that is actually the meaning of Zima. It addresses the evil devices and spurious schemes perpetrated by the most infamous religious leaders. Yahuwah is aware that bad things often happen when money exchanges hands, especially in a religious or political setting. Whether it is a gift to garner favor, a bribe, or a tribute to avoid attack, God is opposed to it, and so was the Messiah. And as for me, with personal integrity, I will consistently walk, I will continue my journey through life, Kalim perfect. You have chosen to redeem me, you want to ransom me, delivering and rescuing me, imperative second person masculine singular, because you want to preserve my life and to restore and prolong life through me, your desire is to extend life with me, from 4Q98a, imperative second person masculine singular. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 26 verse 11. The witness provided by 4Q98a among the Dead Sea Scrolls is important. Rather than reaffirming that Yahuwah loved his son and sought to be merciful to him using Chesed, the oldest extant fragment reads Chaya. Written in the imperative, Dowd stated that Yahuwah wanted to restore, extend, and prolong life through him. And this reaffirms that the Messiah served as the Pesach Isle. Recognizing that Dowd was certain of his redemption, his self-assessment was penned for our benefit. When we are reading the Psalms as they were intended, we set ourselves in Dowd's place, recognizing that when we follow in his footsteps, we can be assured of the same result. Read the above again with me representing yourself and you being an acknowledgement of your father. While we are all a step below Dowd's stature, we can be part of the same family. While we are never going to be the Messiah, we can be God's son or daughter. I am not a prophet, but I can speak of them. We would all do well to study his life and lyrics and follow in his footsteps. My stance, my feet, is to be present, standing tall, ready for evaluation, amad, standing upright and unbowed, appointed in charge, respectful, firm, sustained, and enduring, on elevated and yet level and agreeable ground, mishur, in an upright and just, straightforward and pleasing manner, to inquire about Yasher, being right, within the assembly, makal, in and among the gathered and assembled, to ponder the implications of kahal, being together. I will extol, consistently speaking favorably, Barak, I will greet and adore while addressing the benefits of Yahuwah, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 26 verse 12. Do you stand tall, above the crowd, present and accounted for, ready for Yahuwah to deploy? Are you ready to have Yahuwah evaluate your contribution to his covenant family? Do you speak favorably of the things Yahuwah has done for you and for his people? If not, it might be a good idea to read this again. Concerning Dowd, Dowd. You have chosen to be decisive with me, litigating and vindicating as well as judging and condemning through me, Yahuwah, because it is true, with my integrity intact, forthrightly and honestly, have walked, journeying through life, with, Yahuwah. I have trusted and relied, without wavering, Ma'ad. Mizmor 26:1. You want to test me, examining and assessing me, proving my mettle, Yahuwah, because you want to reveal my true nature by providing an opportunity to achieve your desired outcome with me, Waneza Your will is for me to give you permission to demonstrably refine, Saraf, my emotions, Kilya and my judgment, Waleb Mizmor 26:2. Indeed, this is because, your steadfast love and genuine kindness, Chesed Ada, are conspicuous before my eyes and correspond to what I am witnessing, La Negd Ayin And so, I walk independently from others, journeying through life unaffected by outside influences, social, religious, or political constraints, trusting and relying upon your honesty in your dependable and unwavering commitment to the truth, Emeth Ada. Mizmor 26:3. I do not live, approach or meet, sit or remain with, Yashab the little people, the insignificant lice and parasites, Math, who are vain, fraudulent, and worthless, Shawa. And with the ignorant hypocrites, the charlatans who conceal and cover over the truth, Alam, I am not associated and do not pursue, Bow. Mizmor 26:4. I abhor and shun, sane, the assembly, community, and congregation, kahal, of immoral and ignorant countrymen, Raa. And with the wickedly vexing and condemnable, Rasha, I will not live, approach, sit, or remain, Yashab. Mizmor 26:5. I bathe my hands, rackets yet in innocence, with moral impeccability and freedom from guilt, Nike1. And I go around, Wasabab, your altar, Mizbeach Ada, Yahuwah, Mizmor 26:6, to hear, Lashama, with the voice, Kaul, of thanksgiving, Towrah, and to enumerate and quantify, Wasapar, all of your wonderful deeds, Kol Pala Ada. Mizmor 26:7. Yahuwah, I love, Ahab, the provisions and support, Ma'on, of your home and family, Beth, Ada, and the place, Wamakaum, your glorious presence, Kabod, Ada, tabernacles, Mishkan. Mizmor 26:8.
Do not gather, al-azaf, my soul, nipesh any, with those who miss the way and lead astray, in chada, nor my life, che any, with bloodthirsty individuals, wa, im, ishdam, Mizmor 26:9, in whose hands, asher ba yad, there are evil devices and spurious plots, hemzima. Further, wa, their right hand, yem and hem, is filled with bribes, tributes, and gifts, male, shachad. Mizmor 26:10. And as for me, wa, any, with personal integrity, ba tom any, I will consistently walk, halak. You have chosen to redeem me, pada any, because you want to preserve my life and to restore and prolong life through me, wachaya any. Mizmor 26:11. My stance, regal any, is to be present, standing tall, ready for evaluation, amad, on elevated and yet level and agreeable ground, ba mishor, within the assembly, ba makal. I will extol, consistently speaking favorably, Barak, of Yahowah, Yahowah. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 26 verse 12. Yod hey wah hey. Can you say these words and have them ring true in your life? Yahowah, Yahowah, transliterated as directed by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence and his role in our shalom, reconciliation, is my light, illumination, and enlightenment, or any, my freedom, deliverance, and salvation, wayasha any. So, who should I respect, min my yar, who should I revere? Yahowah, Yahowah, God's one and only name pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence for our shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, is the protector and fortress, ma'os, the refuge and stronghold, of my life, che any. From whom should I fear, min my fachet? Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 1. Respect is earned. Yahowah has earned ours. So has his son, Dowd. When the most brilliant man in history tells us that Yahowah is brighter still, serving as his source of enlightenment, we should take notice. And that is especially true when Yahowah's light leads to our freedom, deliverance, and salvation. So why would anyone trust someone else, like Paul or Akiba for example? With Yahowah protecting our lives, who is there to fear? This has been my motto for the past score of years and I have never been successfully threatened or meaningfully disappointed. I'd highly recommend the same approach. And should you want it laid out in greater detail, with all of the provisions conveyed and explained, read Dowd's 91st Mizmor/Psalm. Considering their relative merit, it is hard to fathom why most ignore God only to be tormented by those who falsely claim to speak for him. As a simple rule, rely upon what is available to read in the Torah, Nabi, Wa Mizmor and only consider the words of men when they convey his in a manner that facilitates greater understanding. And when someone's testimony differs from Yahowah's, as is the case with the likes of Peter and Paul, Akiba and Maimonides, reject the religious charlatans and return to plan A. Had we not recently translated and exposed the book of Ezekiel, I would have had no idea why Dowd would say such a thing. By encroaching upon me, ba carib out any, immoral and ignorant countrymen, raa, loudmouthed citizens who are wrong, evil, distressing, and troublesome, seek to devour my person and message and consume my body in proclamations, la akal eth basar any. My belittling adversaries, zar any, my opponents trying to restrict me, and my enemies, wa oyeb any, they will stumble and bring injury and ruin, hem kashal, they will falter and be overthrown, failing, with their approach toward me, la any hem. And they will fall, wa naphal. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 2. In the 39th chapter of Ezekiel, we find evidence of this, in especially graphic and gory detail. Dubbed the Feast of the Beast, the Lord of Babel claims that he will serve the Gibborim mightiest of men, representing the likes of Dowd and his witnesses, Elia and Yada, on a plate. Satan's faithful are then ordered to eat our flesh and consume our blood. This is so obviously not God, it's hard to explain why I was the first in thousands of years to say that the book of Ezekiel did not belong among the prophets. And yet, sadly, Dowd's immoral and ignorant countrymen not only helped craft Satan's autobiography, they placed the devil's poison among the prophets. It is the same irrational mindset that the religious use to inappropriately excuse the Lord's ghoulish and anti-Torah behavior, it is again deployed to belittle Dowd by negating the merits of his achievements and accolades. And do not let the Star of David, which serves as the national and religious symbol of Israel and Judaism, fool you. There is no star associated with the Messiah and King. His symbols were those of his people, the Lion of Judah, Yahowah's magnificent name, and God's glorious manner. When Dowd returns, he will be swift and certain to obliterate every national and religious Star of David. It is an insult to everything this man said and did throughout his life. Indeed, the rise of this star is a very troubling occurrence because it drives to the heart of the Jewish obsession with being dehumanized and demonized. For 5 centuries, culminating with the Holocaust, Jews were subjugated, tortured, and murdered under this symbol, one with no connection to their heritage, nation, or God. And yet in spite of this, they wear the pagan symbol as a badge of honor. Given the choice between Yahowah's name and a corruption of Dowd's, given a choice between a menorah and a star, they have consistently chosen poorly, not unlike Akiba, the father of Judaism. It was his Messiah, Simon Bar Kokhba, son of a star, that served as the impetus of this religious and national travesty. The star belongs to the false Messiah named after it but not to the Son of God. Beyond these 2 points, there is another: Jews have devoured their own. Peter and Paul were Jews, and they created the counterfeit Jesus by stealing Dowd's titles, achievements, and prophecies. Similarly, Akiba initiated Rabbinic Judaism by pitting one false Messiah against another, which only served to devour the person and message of the actual Hamashiach. And for what purpose? Belittling Dowd causes all who are beguiled in this way to stumble and fall because there is no other means to God other than the berith which Dowd exemplified and the Mikra which he fulfilled. Speaking of the adversary's ongoing assault against the actual Messiah and Son of God, we read, Even with, him being pitched and inclined against me, chana al any mashana, it being like an army besieging me, my heart and thinking, leb any, will not be anxious or apprehensive or show any fear or respect, lo yar. Even if, he is rising up and taking a stand against me, kyum al any, to battle and fight, milchama, against this, ba I will remain confident and reliant, any batach. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 3. For the past 2,000 years, the world at large has been inclined to mischaracterize what Dowd represents, what he wrote and achieved. Nevertheless, the Messiah did not lose heart because he knew that his father had a plan in place to resolve this problem in advance of his return. While not named Yada Dowd, Yada Yahowah is God's retort to the religious who have demeaned his son. We are aware that David fought major battles against the Philistines, Syrians, Amalekites, Edomites, Moabites, Ammonites, and some 60 others, never losing. So, he was hardly worried that someone would defeat him. As long as he was reliant on Yah, he was invincible. Although, this particular foe was more formidable and insidious because he had 6,000 years to plan and perpetrate his assault. And Satan was reasonably effective, having created Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all of which misappropriate Dowd's titles and demean his contributions, with the first two conceived to counterfeit his accolades and achievements, while the third is a siren song from psychopaths. But Dowd will prevail in the end, rising up to become the sovereign of the universe. All the while, those who ravaged his reputation to promote themselves and their religion are headed in the opposite direction. Dowd asked many things of his father, but at this moment, in this context, this was the most relevant. One thing, Ekad, I have asked, Sha'al, I have inquired about, from, Min, Eth, Yahowah, Yahowah, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our, Eloah, God, through this, Eth Hai, may I continually seek to learn about, Bakash, me dwelling, Yashab any, living and staying, approaching restored and sustained, within the house and family, Ba Baith, of Yahowah, Yahowah, God's one and only name pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence for our Shalom, reconciliation as our, Eloah, God, all of the days, Kol Yaumim, of my life, Che any, to look upon, observe, and gaze into, Chaza Ba, the favorable acceptance and loveliness, Noam, the enjoyable nature, beloved character, splendorous beauty, and overall pleasantness, of Yahowah, Yahowah, pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence for our Shalom. Reconciliation as our Eloah, God, and to look at, inspect, and consider exploring, Bakar, in his temple and tabernacle, Ba Hakelhu, within his sanctuary. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 4. When we consider Dowd's discussion with Nathan, and then Yahowah's sensational response, as recorded in 2 Samuel 7, this is not surprising. The son wanted to build a home for his father. He acquired the land upon which it would sit, he assembled all of the necessary materials, and Yahowah provided him with a model and explicit directions. And therefore, knowing Yahowah, I'm certain that he allowed Dowd to tour the result spiritually upon completion. However, there are two dwellings which are far more majestic. These include the one he will enter upon his return to anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant on Yom Kippurim, the day of reconciliations, and the even more magnificent one in Shemaim heaven over which he will preside. Also, in these words, we see Dowd's curiosity as he seeks to explore the covenant's home. The details fascinate him, which is why he understands more than any other. In particular, Dowd wants to enjoy Yahowah's beloved character and pleasantness. The king sees God as should we all, as approachable, friendly, and kind. As a prophet, and able to see how he would be plundered by his people to create Judaism and Christianity, there were no doubt times when Dowd must have thought that the whole world was against him as a result of Yisrael's propensity to follow misleading shepherds. And as a result, the truth regarding all Dowd represents was hidden in plain sight. For he will conceal me, Ky Tsafan any, in his shelter, Ba Saku, in his booth and tent, from Sakak, to screen with a hedge, to protect by covering. During the day, Ba Yaum, of destructive shepherds and harmful countrymen, Ra, he will conceal me, causing me to vanish, Sathar any, in the protection of his tent, Ba Sether, Oholhu. With a sharp crag, Ba Tsur, he will lift me on high, Rum any, he will take action to increase my prominence. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 5. This is precisely what Yahowah has done. While these words have been available for anyone to read, within them, Dowd has been concealed from view for the past 3,000 years, protected by his father. It wasn't until someone came to appreciate the benefits of the covenant and then saw how they were delivered through the YYV that Dowd's lives and lyrics could be correctly interpreted and understood. And even then, this observant individual had to scrutinize his testimony to the extent that the volitional expressions were properly expressed to accurately assess the story of a father and son's love for one another. Over time, it was just a matter of being open to where his words, and those of God, led and following them to the realization that Dowd volunteered to serve as the Passover lamb and then carry our guilt into Sheol. All the while, the many destructive shepherds among his harmful countrymen, by failing to appreciate what he represents, even being blinded to it, have relentlessly plundered and neutered our King and Savior. And this is a serious affront to God's intent because, second only to robbing Yahowah of his name, degrading his son by denying him his due is the most irritating and deadly thing the religious have done. He is first and foremost a father, and Dowd is his most beloved son. And if that were not enough to eschew the religious lies and embrace the truth, without Dowd having fulfilled the YYV there is no way to approach God, enter his home, or live with him. If not for the impetus of this message, what came before it and what will follow, I would have smiled at seeing Sir Sharp Crag and would have moved on. However, I am too connected with these proceedings to not share that my name, Craig, is of Gaelic origins, derived from Creed, meaning rock, rocky heights, and crag. Since there would be no other rational reason to insert Sur into this discussion, I am Dowd's frontman, his herald, the voice announcing his arrival, who, with Yahuwah's help, is now lifting him on high. There have been many hundreds, perhaps thousands, of revelations presented within the pages of the YAHOWAH branded books which were previously unheralded. The proper pronunciation of Yahuwah's name is foremost among them. But second to it in importance is the realization that Dowd is not only the Messiah, Son of God, and returning King, he served as the Passover lamb to open the door to life in heaven. As God's firstborn, chosen one, and most set apart, no one factors more prominently in Yahuwah's plans, no one is called out by name more often, and no one is afforded this wealth of titles and accolades. The person who comes closest, with 80% as many mentions by name as Dowd's 1,100, is Moses, and he is retired. Dowd is not. And by contrast, none of the rabbis or characters responsible for the conception of Judaism, Christianity, or Islam are addressed, unless it is to condemn them. There is not a single prophecy in which Jesus Christ is named. And that is because Dowd was the lamb and is the shepherd. It is a point lost on both Judaism and Christianity. Found prominently within the pages, and third only to Moses and Dowd, is the king's Sir Sharp Crag. He is introduced as Yada He knows, the Nakri observant foreigner, the Cowl voice, and the Basar herald. He is the Adam min Hadam man from Edom, working as a Malay messenger, an Ed restoring witness, the Chodar fruitful stem, and as the third Zeroah, one cultivating a productive harvest. At times, the allusions to him are as an Egel reoccurring one, a par bull, and then as the Adam Apara bloody red man performing as the red heifer. He serves as Nasi, sovereign and Sar prince to Dowd and as the keys, moon reflecting the sun's light. While these pragmatic and descriptive titles aren't nearly as flattering as Dowd's, they are effective at explaining Yada's role, which is all that really matters. And this is why the prophets were so prolific in speaking about him using these expressive terms long ago. By contrast, all of the prophecies claimed by Christians on behalf of their counterfeit misnomer Jesus were written either of Dowd or of his herald. These include 2 Shamuel 7, Yashaya 9, 11, and 40, and Daniel 9, among many others. Over the past decade, and throughout an introduction to God, Yada Yahowah, observations, coming home, Babel, goddamn religion, and Twistianity, I have consistently revealed that Dowd is the Messiah, the Son of God, and the returning King. And more recently, I became the first in over 2,500 years to rediscover and announce that Dowd fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim in year 4000 Yah. I suspect that from Yahuwah's perspective, this is the greatest discovery in human history. The stakes are monumental. Without robbing Dowd of his divinely appointed acclaim and his achievements, Christianity does not exist. There is no other basis for the myth that became Jesus apart from what was misappropriated from Dowd. Jesus was nothing more than a crude counterfeit promoted by crooks. He was not the Christ or the Son of God. Simple. Profound. Irrefutable. And without rejecting Dowd and dismissing his acclaim and accolades, Judaism does not exist. And without Judaism, there is no Islam because the Quran was comprised of bastardized Talmud stories. After thousands of years, the failure to recognize that Dowd's God-given titles were stolen and his accomplishments misappropriated keeps the world and word shrouded in darkness. It robs almost everyone, such that access to the truth behind the fulfillments of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, the most important 3 days in human history, is obscured. Absconding with Dowd's titles is a life-ending and soul-crushing event for Jews and Christians alike. What should have been obvious to everyone not blinded by religion or prejudice is that Christianity and Judaism are invalidated when Dowd David is properly credited with what he has achieved. The very nature of the Berith and Micra Ey are understood when viewed from the perspective of his titles, accolades, and accomplishments, and they are negated when disjoined. While rabbis will lie and claim that Judaism dates back to the time of Moses with their oral Torah, the evidence dictates otherwise. Judaism was actually created in the 1st and 2nd centuries CE and then codified in Babylon in the 5th and 6th centuries in response to the growing threat of Roman Catholicism. Quite literally, one false messiah was cast against another. Then, 1,500 years later, the asinine Haredi strain of the religion was developed in 18th century Ukraine during the power vacuum created by the demise of the Holy Roman Empire. Rabbi Akiba, the acclaimed father of Judaism, is wholly responsible for foisting the counterfeit Messiah, Simon Bar Kokhba, on Yehudim in the Yabel year 4100 Yah, 133 CE, all to counter the claims Christians were making of their Christ and to keep Jews from slipping out from under his control. And while his pronouncement led directly to the destruction of Judea and Jerusalem, the diaspora and the renaming of the land, Palestine, and proved to be false, Jews incomprehensibly still revere the religious liar who did them more harm than any other, including Paul and Muhammad. The Roman assault would not have occurred, there would have been no Christianity and, therefore, no diaspora or Holocaust, and there would be no Islamic invasions or terrorism had the first rabbis, known as Pharisees at the time, simply acknowledged what the Nabi, Wa Mizmor say about Dowd. Had they conveyed what I have written, that Dowd is the Son of God and the Messiah who fulfilled Pesach, and that all of the prophecies pertain to him, no one would have heard of Peter, Paul, Luke, Mark, Matthew, or a New Testament. All the Torah scholars of the day needed to say, in addition to exclaiming Dowd's relevance, was that Yahuwah was fulfilling his promise to provide the Passover lamb and then perfect his people on unyeasted bread. But in their schemes, the rabbis denied the arrival of the Pesach, Isle and repudiated the fulfillment of Matzah and Bikurim, thereby depriving everyone of what the Messiah had accomplished at such great cost. This is not only the seed which grew to become Judaism, it is the third most egregious offense Jews have perpetrated against God. The fourth grew out of these denials and became their Babylonian Talmud, superseding Yahuwah's Torah guidance in the lives of God's people. These things are all related, they are devastating and irrefutable, and they were initially disclosed in these pages by accurately translating and thoughtfully contemplating the words of Yahuwah's prophets, then comparing them to rabbinical rhetoric. The truth about Dowd is no longer being concealed. On the cusp of his Yom Kippurim return in year 6000 Yah, sunset in Jerusalem, October 2, 2033, the Son of God, Messiah, and our King, has a herald known as Yada. His name is Craig. And he is lifting God's Son up on high where he belongs, higher even than anyone has ever imagined. This is no small feat because, when this is done, two of the world's best-known religions crumble. The Passover lamb is recognizable and can be accepted, providing an eternal extension of life. And Jews can begin preparing for the Messiah's return with Yahuwah. With God, there is always a proper order of things. Our work on behalf of Dowd began on Towrah in 2001. And since that day, every day has been an expression of Towrah's intended influence among the children of Yisrael. It is, as the Mizmor suggests, a warning against the rancorous opposition and a song to celebrate the relationship. It is a feast of proclaiming the truth, of being a troubadour, and of calling God's people home. As we step forward into Dowd's next statement, it is revealing to note that Towrah is likely a compound of tab, which either means to desire or to abhor, and ruah, to shout out or blast out a message, whether it be a warning or good news. And then, Ada, my stature will rise, Roshni, my leadership, the sum and best of me, and what I was from the beginning, above my opposition who are rancorous toward me, Oyeb-eni, on every side, surrounding me, Sabib-eni. I want the sacrifice prepared, Wazabak, I foresee the desirability of the sacrificial offering, in his radiant home and tabernacle, Ba-Oholhu, in his brilliant tent, shelter, and residence, with the sacrificial offerings killed and presented, Zebakim, of Towrah, trumpeting, broadcasting the message of good news and of alarm, of joyful acclaim along with a warning, the next Micra, to be fulfilled on the first day of the 7th month. I will choose to sing, Shyr, I will continually use my voice as an instrument to convey the lyrics of a song, Kal in perfect cohortative first-person singular, because I want to make music for the enjoyment, Wazamer, I will want to play a melodious instrument, Peel in perfect cohortative first-person singular, of Yahowah, Yahowah. On behalf of God's name transliterated as directed by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 6. Dowd's stature is the highest among men because of who he is, what he has done, and with whom he has done it alongside. However, since Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have trashed his reputation and since progressives in academia deny he even existed, without what has been revealed throughout Yada Yahowah to re-establish the Messiah's reputation, no one today would know or care. So, as a prophet, Dowd is still speaking of what Craig is doing for him on the cusp of his return. As for what follows, even though the reference to the Craig restoring his reputation and the ensuing sacrifice are related, apart from one of Yahuwah's prophets, it would be hard to imagine anyone else saying that they were eagerly anticipating what will transpire on Towrah. For those who have not yet read Yada Yahowah Volume 5, Cats or Harvests, or studied Yashayah/Isaiah 17, suffice it to say that I am going to be beaten to death by Satan as the red heifer. However, for those who appreciate the benefits and know that the surviving remnant of Yisrael will be purged of guilt and thereby prepared for Yahuwah's arrival by my ordeal, such that there is a joyous homecoming and the planet is not destroyed, the sacrifice of the red heifer is a tremendous blessing. There are several ways we can interpret the verbal and noun iterations of Zabak and Zabakim in this context. First, it is not only Dowd's reputation that is being restored by the third Zeroah during Towrah but also the Messiah's Horish bride. The Adamah para of Numbers 19 returns the adulterous woman of Numbers 5 to respectability. Second, the same three sacrificial animals are presented during Towrah and Kippurim, the bull, goat, and ram, representing Yada, Elia, and Dowd. As a result, on the day of reconciliations, the king will anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant with a smattering of our blood in accordance with the Torah's instructions. So, by assembling the cast on Yom Towrah, we are all available and ready to play our respective roles come Yom Kippurim. And third, without the Towrah sacrifice of the red heifer, there would be no family reunion. Father and son would have no one prepared and awaiting their return. Still laden with their religious and political guilt, the remnant wouldn't survive in Yahuwah's presence. However, as a result of the Towrah Zabak, Yisrael and the Berith are restored. Beyond these remarkable things, in Dowd's prose, we also see that the Towrah sacrifice will be presented within proximity of what we should assume is a replica of the tabernacle. It will be erected atop the Temple Mount to accommodate the two witnesses, Yada and Elia. It is from here that Yahuwah will release the restorative waters and ignite the purging flames of this great spectacle surrounding the sacrifice of the Adamah para while Elia provides the life-restoring narrative. As we have discovered in the 17th chapter of Yashayah, the fulfillment of Towrah goes well beyond cultivating the final gleaning of the covenant family and heralding the Messiah's return. As the sun rises on Towrah in year 6000 Yah/September 24, 2033, Dowd's Basar and Yahuwah's cow will be tortured to death, offering his life as the red heifer to restore the adulterous woman that is Yisrael to respectability. The remnant of mortal Yisraelites the man from Tidam has left behind must be cleansed of guilt for Yahuwah's arrival, which is what this sacrifice will facilitate. To a significant extent, Yada Yahowah remains the ultimate expression of Towrah in today's world. It is the lone voice of reason calling out in the wilderness of peculiar religious and political agendas. It stands alone, completely separate and apart from Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and progressive Babel. I have been singing Dowd's praises louder and longer than any other besides his father. And I do so because when Dowd is properly positioned next to the Torah, the prophets, the covenant, the invitations to meet, Yisrael, and Yahuwah's return, everything falls into place and makes sense. And until that occurs, anti-Semitism festers, holocausts occur, religions control, Yahuwah remains unknown, and humanity stands apart from God. With Dowd in his rightful place, we can look to our past and accept the Passover lamb. We can appreciate the sacrifice which made matzah possible.
For the first time in a long time, we will understand why Yahowah called Dowd his firstborn. And we can look to the future with confidence, knowing who is returning and when it will occur, all while gaining a newfound respect for our king. We can also perceive Towrah being fulfilled in accordance with the Torah, Nabi, Wa Mizmor. We can picture this in the context of Dowd's arrival on Kippurim to anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant as prescribed in the Torah and foretold by the prophets to forever reconcile Yahowah with a united Yisrael. Dowd will serve as the Gibbor mighty defender of God's people through Sukkah, when, during the final Mikra, Dowd will become our shepherd and king. That is God's plan and how Dowd reigns in the middle of it. Additionally, by accepting all Dowd represents, we see our God as our Father and recognize that we are his children. We understand that it is the Torah, with its Berith and Mikra, which makes this possible, perfecting the imperfect. We perceive Yahowah as merciful in our salvation and generous in our inheritance. We have footsteps to follow, a life to emulate, a big brother to show us the way, a shepherd to lead us, a Messiah to defend us, a prophet to counsel us, a king to lead us, and a singer to entertain us. And soon, God's people will give Dowd his due. In this light, and as shared previously, we are reading Dowd's psalms correctly when we see ourselves in his words, as someone standing in his footsteps expecting the same result. And so, should you prefer that this prophecy regarding Dowd's herald pertains to you, then make it so. If you want to join us in contributing to the family, we will all openly applaud your effort and welcome your contributions. This known, Dowd is the exemplar of Yahowah's mercy and how it is derived from the Mikra. Your desire is to listen, Shama, you want to hear, Kal imperative second person masculine singular, Yahowah, Yahowah, God's name pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his Haya, existence, to my voice, Kal, any, as I call out, reciting an invitation to meet, Kara, when I issue a summons, reading the welcoming proclamation. You have decided to favor me, Wachan and any, you want to be generous toward me, Kal imperative, and so your will is to be overtly involved, focused upon, and actively engaged with me, to sing with me, to communicate through me, and to respond by providing me as an answer, Wa, Anna, any. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 7. When this statement is errantly rendered, it can lead the ill-informed astray. Dowd was not asking Yahowah to listen to him because that would be counterproductive at this point. Our relationship works best when we listen to God and then share what we have learned with those eager to grow in their knowledge of him. I have never and will never tell him that he needs to listen to me. But that does not mean he isn't aware of and enjoying what we have to say about his Kara invitations to meet. Instead, this conveys that Dowd realizes that God wants to hear what he has to say. And this is because, more than anyone else, Yahowah loved hearing him sing of how he intended to fulfill the Mikra, Pesach, Matzah, Bikurim, Kippurim, and Sukkah, because these are all celebrations of family. Father and son knew that the sacrifice would be over in a day or two but that the benefits would endure forever. This is particularly important because God is focused upon and engaged with Dowd. He has chosen to communicate through his son. And his preference would be to respond to us the same way. God changed the universe with his son, imagine what he would have done with two. Our Messiah is the answer to so many of our needs and concerns. Simply stated, Dowd is Yahowah's Anna answer to Judaism and Christianity, to God being wrongly perceived as wrathful and mean, to him being thought of as unforgiving, and to having allegedly changed his mind to make a New Testament or Talmud possible. With his first life playing out 3,000 years after the expulsion from Eden, 1,000 years after the introduction of the covenant, 1,000 years prior to the implementation of the three-spring Mikra, and 3,000 years in advance of the fulfillment of the three-fall mode, he is the fulcrum upon which everything pivots, the very center of God's long and compelling story. Yes, indeed. Regarding you, La Ada, my thoughts and judgment, Leb any, my mind and heart, acknowledge, Amar, that you have chosen to call my presence into account, Bakash Pana any, you want to encourage seeking and investigating my appearance, just as you are holding me accountable and responsible. Your appearance, Eth Pana Ada, Yahowah, Yahowah, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his Haya, existence, I consistently seek, request, and inquire about, Bakash. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 8. Dowd is the Anna. He is Yisrael. He is the exemplar of the Berith. He is proof that the Torah Yasha. Dowd embodies what it means to be Tzaddik. He exemplifies what it means to be Dowd. Even though God's son had his moments, and he was far from perfect, with the Torah's provisions, all of this became possible. And so, he is confident in acknowledging what every covenant member knows, but none other than Dowd would have the courage to say. You will not conceal your presence from me for a prolonged period of time, Al-Sathar Pana Adam in any, you will not hide your appearance from me on an ongoing basis, hyphal imperfect second person masculine singular jussive. You are not inclined to spread out or elongate frustration, resentment, or displeasure, Al-Nada Baf, you will not hold a grievance and turn away in anger for a protracted period, hyphal imperfect, with your co-worker and associate, Ebeid Ada. You have been, Haya, my helper, my influential and powerful assistant, Ezra any. You will never abandon me, Al-Nadash any, you will never discontinue using me or hand me over to another, Kal imperfect second person masculine singular jussive, just as you will never reject or forsake me, Wa, Al-Azab any, you will never desert me, foregoing our association or neglecting our relationship, Kal imperfect second person masculine singular jussive, O God, Elohi, of my deliverance, emancipation, and salvation, Yasha any, of my freedom, welfare, victory, and protection. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 9. Dowd was not perfect but was perfected. He made a number of poor decisions and lived to regret them, even though they were forgotten by his father. What's amazing here is that, by using the hyphal imperfect, Dowd is able to be precisely accurate. YAHOWAH would, indeed, hide his presence from his son when Dowd fulfilled matzah, taking our guilt to the place of separation, but YAHOWAH had prearranged for their estrangement to be short-lived. Further, it was wholly appropriate for Dowd to be bold in this regard. He was certain that his destiny was to be with God. And deep down, we know it's true of everyone who has accepted the conditions of the covenant and answered the invitations, who knows and loves YAHOWAH by observing the Torah and prophets. God celebrates our understanding and conviction, just as he did when he inspired Dowd to scribe these statements on our behalf. YAHOWAH expects us to take him at his word, to realize that he is going to perform as promised. This isn't a taunt, it's the answer. It is the response to his provisions YAHOWAH wants to hear his children profess. In a pronouncement full of bold statements, it may strike the uninitiated as conceited to infer that YAHOWAH serves us, and that he is constantly working through his ruach to assist and enable those of us committed to promoting his agenda. Until we become exceedingly familiar with YAHOWAH, indeed, become close to him, there is the tendency to accept the prevailing sentiment that God wants us to lift him up in praise and worship him. But, not only is that counter to YAHOWAH's intent, by doing so, we get nothing accomplished. The fact is, God is so eager to work with us and through us, when he finds someone willing to listen and then engage, he provides everything we need to succeed. And yet, it is utterly incomprehensible for most to consider God as our assistant. But when the relationship is working properly, it must be true. For example, based upon what Yashaya reported of the Choder succor, I'm being assisted by 7 ruach, providing all manner of help to accomplish the mission together. Perhaps this means that Dowd was smarter, bolder, and more articulate since he was able to outperform the rest of humanity relying upon a single ruach. The realization that God has devoted 7 spirits to our mission either means he thinks I need a lot of help, or we are running out of time and failure isn't an option. Either way, I'm delighted to be contributing to the family even if, especially if, YAHOWAH deserves the credit. By way of personal example, I have made my share of mistakes, but I make up for it with my passion to correct the record so that the books and broadcasts are right. I am at times distracted, but no one works any more diligently or passionately on behalf of his people. And while I'm frustrated at times for missing important insights that should have been obvious in hindsight, by human standards, the last 23 years have been amazingly productive as a result of what YAHOWAH has contributed to making this possible. As his co-worker, empowered and enlightened by his spirit, I can be like a mini Dowd at times because God sees and celebrates everything we accomplish together while remaining deliberately unaware of my shortcomings. Since no one else was willing, I was afforded the greatest job since, well, ever. This is the most exciting time to serve, and we find ourselves in the best possible place. The countdown is on, and father and son will be here as foretold on Yom Kippurim in 2033. And right now, there aren't enough Yehudim and Yisraelites who know them to make the reunion possible, much less as rewarding as it is intended. So, with so much at stake, with so little time remaining, with so few, if any, alternatives, God's all in. Just as he was with Dowd, he's never going to give up on our relationship. Moreover, based upon all of the accolades in the Torah and prophets, he's happy with what we are accomplishing. Furthermore, this is not a one-sided affair. God gains a great deal from what we achieve. Just because we get more out of the relationship than he gains individually does not diminish the realization that this is advantageous for him, too. Through the covenant, we are engaged in a mutually beneficial relationship. Sure, he invests more into it, and we get a lot more out of it, but that is the way he designed it and wants it to be. So go ahead and tell YAHOWAH you know that he will never be frustrated by you, never abandon you, and will continue to assist you. He knows it's true and can't wait to hear you say it. As we continue to write ourselves into his story, many of us are like Dowd in this way, too. Indeed, it is true, KY, my father, Eni, and my mother, Eni, had rejected and forsaken me, as Eni, they had abandoned me, deserting me, Cal perfect, but, YAHOWAH, God's one and only name pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his Haya, existence for our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, having taken me in, will always be with me, Eni, he will always bring me home and receive me, gathering me in as in a harvest, Cal. Imperfect third-person masculine singular. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 10. Dowd was not alone in this regard. The overwhelming majority of families are broken at multiple levels. The grating irritation can come from parents, spouses, children, siblings, grandparents, grandchildren, or in-laws. Like Dowd, I survived poor parenting. His father, Jesse, thought very little of his youngest son and sent him off to fend for himself at a young age. He comes across through the dialogue as a waste of breath during his brief discussion with Shamuel. And Dowd's mother was so insignificant or caustic, she is never mentioned. In truth, people are disappointing, especially to other people and to God. When Dowd compared YAHOWAH to his birth parents, he correctly assessed that one relationship was far more enjoyable and productive than the other. The same has been true with me and with every other covenant member. However, Dowd was special. As we read elsewhere, his relationship with God was father and son. That is infinitely superior to lord and subject. Based upon the contrast that Dowd is making, we also see that YAHOWAH interacts with the covenant family as our heavenly father and spiritual mother. This is, therefore, the intent of the fifth statement etched in stone, which encourages us to highly regard our heavenly father and spiritual mother. The son's statement affirms that YAHOWAH is not only dependable, but he's also welcoming. He is waiting for us with open arms. Once covenant, always family. This serves to reinforce the covenant's lone prerequisite. We are asked not only to walk away from the Babel of religion, politics, and societal traditions but also from our Father's house. This is symbolic of leaving the family of man to be part of the family of God. As we take a closer look, we find that the primary meaning of Azaph is to gather and collect as in a harvest. Throughout the Torah, Azaph is an ingathering. It is associated with Bikurim, Shabuah, and Teruah. So, Dowd is addressing the three harvests of saved souls associated with the YYV, and particularly with Teruah, which he has just mentioned by name, and on Kippurim, when he will return. As we move forward and see that, once again, Dowd is using Yahuwah's name, I would encourage everyone to continue to follow in his footsteps. When we do as he does in the Mizmor, we endear ourselves to God. Be careful, however, not in speaking Yahuwah's name but in the context you convey it, as well as your acceptance of others who use it. There have been numerous religious and conspiracy cults whose leaders have misappropriated the transliterations disclosed within the Yahuwah-branded books. Using God's name to promote such idiocy is an unforgivable sin, resulting in a guaranteed one-way trip to Sheol hell. No amount of sex, power, or money is worth it. Do not do it, and do not be fooled by those who do. This includes the so-called Black Hebrew Israelites. They are among the most pathetic and anti-Semitic morons in the long history of religious charlatans. Ignoring Yahuwah's name is akin to circumcision in a way. Being circumcised will not open heaven's door, but being uncircumcised will close it for a man. Rejecting Yahuwah's name will bar entry to the Berith and to Shemaim. However, since even Satan knows Yahuwah's proper designation, it does not guarantee admission. He covets it as if it were his own, and yet, his fate is to be eternally separated from Yahuwah. As we learned long ago, the proper pronunciation of Yahuwah can be discerned by examining other commonly used Hebrew words containing the same vowels. They are found in Haya, the verb Yahuwah used to introduce himself to us in the Torah. There are 1,000 similar examples revealing how each letter is pronounced, including the name of Israel's current prime minister, Netanyahu. Even the verb, yara, which serves as the actionable root of Torah, is helpful. You want to guide and teach me, yara any, your desire is to instruct and direct me, making me aware of, hyphal imperative second person masculine singular, your way, Derek any, your path, Yahuwah, Yahowah God's name transliterated as directed by his Torah, instructions on his Haya, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God. Your will is to reliably lead me, Wanacha any, you have chosen to create the opportunity to guide and direct my movements in a trustworthy and dependable manner, Cal imperative second person masculine singular, by the upright and level, correct and straightforward, agreeable and elevated, ba mishor, just and fair, straight and right, approved and pleasing, route, arch, way, path, conduct, manner, and thoroughfare leading to one's destiny in life, on account of, Laman, due to, my adversaries, sour any, those in opposition to me. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 11. Good parents guide and teach their children. It is among the most enjoyable aspects of the relationship and is not by obligation. In this regard, Yahuwah serves as a perfect example. If seeking his will for your life, reread what Dowd just stated. The path to Yahuwah is clearly demarcated, straightforward, approved, pleasing, correct, and singular. The seven-mode micro-EY work in conjunction with the Berith to bring Yahuwah's family to Shemaim. We also know from reading Yashayah that God would deploy the cowl voice of the king's Basar herald to prepare Yisrael to walk along this upright and straightforward, elevated highway to him prior to his arrival. And we are aware that it will whisk the remnant of Yisrael away from the tormenting Arabs, who, as Muslims, have been so ruthlessly adversarial. In the process of walking away from the religious, political, and societal babble of man trusting and relying upon Yahuwah by observing the terms of his covenant, we are perfected when we enter through the doorway of life on Pesach, leaving our faith behind when crossing the threshold of Matzah to become God's children on Bikurim. On this day, we are enriched, empowered, and enlightened by our Heavenly Father and spiritual Mother. And we are ready for emancipation, leaving the physical world during Shabuah and Teruah so that we can be home with family. And as a result of the sacrifice of the Adam Apara on the morning of Teruah, Yahuwah's remaining people will be reconciled prior to his return on Kippurim so that they can camp out with our Father during Sukkah in conditions similar to those experienced in the garden. That is the way. In the battle between religion and relationship, between the path to God and the ways of man, between right and wrong, Dowd was and will be our most competent combatant. And by fighting for the things which please his Father, he knew that he would prevail. You have decided not to give me over to, Al-Nathan Neba, you, by choice, are committed to never allowing me to be subject to, Cal imperative, the soul of my adversaries, who would diminish, belittle, constrain, and negate me, Nepesh Zar any, who, indeed, will have risen up and become established to take a stand, Ky Kyum, against me, Ba any, to bear false witness, provide deceptive and misleading testimony and commit fraud, Ed Sheker. They exude, YYV3C1, they breathe and fan, injustice and oppression, immorality and ignorance, wrongly plundering, terrorizing, and destroying, chamas, violence and cruelty. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 12. Through his continued use of the imperative mood which conveys volition in the second person, it becomes increasingly evident that Dowd knew the will of God. And since we seek it, this is yet another benefit of reading his Mizmor/Psalms. By using Nepesh soul at this juncture, we realize that Dowd ascribed the ongoing problem of debasing him to an individual in league with others. Nepesh was singular while Zar was plural. In other Mizmor, and through other prophets, the identity of the person most responsible for degrading Dowd is provided. His name is Shaul, whom Christians know as Paul. His initial attack against Dowd, where he undercut the Messiah to buoy the myth of a Christ, occurred in Galatians, Christianity's inaugural document. Paul committed fraud of the worst order when he deliberately provided misleading and deceptive testimony. And as a result of his malignant rhetoric, countless millions of Jews have been oppressed and plundered by billions of ignorant and immoral Gentiles. Should you be interested in knowing more about what Dowd was condemning, please read Appalling, Towerless, Devil's Advocate, Incredible, and Philology in the Twistianity series. It is, therefore, the religious who have been the most adversarial to God's chosen one. They needed to usurp his credibility to create the pretense of legitimacy. It is true that, I am certain, knowing that it is established, verifiable, and true, Aman, that I will witness and reveal, the fairness and appropriateness, the beneficial qualities, of Yahowah, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his YAHOWAH, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, in the land of the living, Eretz Chaim. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 13. He was a prophet and a son, so he knew both statements were true. Yahowah's personality is attractive and a relationship with him is beneficial. He is both fair and good. We know that the Son of God witnessed his future because he wrote extensively about it, describing his fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim in painstaking detail. And when we listen to what Yahowah had to say about his son throughout the prophets, it becomes readily apparent that Dowd was aware of what was going to happen over the next several thousand years. Therefore, the Messiah understood that by his fulfillment of the Mikri, Yahowah could be fair while delivering the benefits of the Berith. He also recognized that the sacrifice of his herald as the red heifer would deliver a similar result. Therefore, having witnessed what was going to occur while still in the realm of the living, Dowd wrote about what he knew was certain, verifiable, and true. As a prophet, of course, Dowd's confidence surpassed all but a score of other men. And while ours cannot currently reach this same level, it can come close because we not only have his testimony to rely upon but also other prophets like Yashaya, Yirmiah, Zechariah, Hosea, Chabakkuk, Yoel, and Malachi. Collectively, they offer tremendously valuable insights, a consistent explanation of our past and future, and so many fulfilled prophecies that with some effort, we can know a great many things for certain. The more we read, the closer we look, the more we will come to know. And as we think our way through what Yahowah has revealed, and make the proper connections, we will come to understand who God is, what he is offering, and what he expects from us in return. And with comprehension comes confidence. These are attributes Yahowah admires in us. You should choose to confidently place your expectations toward a beneficial result, looking forward, Kawah, of your own volition favorably anticipate the gathering in, Peel imperative second person masculine singular, to, Yahowah, God's one and only name pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his YAHOWAH, existence for our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God. You should want to be strong and prevail, Chazak, choose to be intense, powerful, firm, tough, and even overpowering, Kal imperative second person masculine singular. And with your courageous character and reinforced judgment, Amitz Leb Ada, choose to confidently anticipate the beneficial future ingathering, Kawah, of your own volition favorably expect the gathering in, Peel imperative second person masculine singular, to, Yahowah, pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his YAHOWAH, existence. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 27 verse 14. The point that Dowd is making seems to be lost on almost everyone, particularly the religious. Faith is for fools. Confidence counts. It fuels the courage and competence of those who understand. That is why God provided this prophetic testimony. It is why we are extracting every nuance, examining it under the microscope of amplification, and then analyzing it. Understanding builds confidence, and confidence builds character, commitment, and competency. As covenant members, we should be looking forward to the ingatherings and then to Yahowah's return with Dowd. We should boldly share the good news. Eternity is long, the universe is large, and both will be more enjoyable when shared with like-minded souls. When it came to Yahowah, Dowd was mind over heart while engaging both. But when it came to fighting for what was right and battling his people's foes, Dowd was the exemplar of unwavering confidence and courage. He was a tough guy with biting rhetoric, a strong arm, and a sharp sword. He was an intense fellow with an overpowering presence, oozing charisma and demonstrating unwavering resolve. He was intellectually superior, exceedingly articulate, and typically judgmental, even condemning. And since we know that Yahowah loved him more than any other, we should strive to reflect these qualities. This is why, in his closing comments, Dowd encouraged us to read ourselves into his script, to be as he was and will be. Among the most enlightening of psalms, this is worth repeating. Yahowah, Yahowah is my light, my illumination and enlightenment, or Eni, my freedom, deliverance, and salvation, Yasha Eni. So, whom should I respect and revere, min my yar? Yahowah, is the protector and fortress, Ma'os, of my life, Che Eni. From whom should I fear, min my fatched? Mizmor 27:1. By encroaching upon me, Ba Karib al Eni, immoral and ignorant countrymen, Raa, seek to devour my person in message and consume my body in proclamations, La Akal Eth Basar Eni. My belittling adversaries, Zar Eni, and my enemies, Wa Oyeb Eni, they will stumble and bring injury and ruin, Hem Kashal, with their approach toward me, La Eni Hem. And they will fall, Wa Naphal. Mizmor 27:2. Even with him being pitched and inclined against me, Chana al Eni Mashana, my heart and thinking, Leb Eni, will not be anxious or apprehensive nor show any fear or respect, Lo Yar. Even if, he is rising up and taking a stand against me, Kyum al Eni, to battle and fight, Milchama, against this, Ba Zoth, I will remain confident and reliant, Eni Batach. Mizmor 27:3. One thing, Echad, I have asked, Shaal, from, Min, Eth, Yahowah, through this, Eth High, may I continually seek to learn about, Bakash, me dwelling, Yashab Eni, within the house and family, Ba Baith, of Yahowah, all of the days, Kol Yalman, of my life, Che Eni, to look upon, observe, and gaze into, Chaza Ba, the favorable acceptance and loveliness, Noam, of Yahowah, and to look at, inspect, and consider exploring, Bakar, in his sanctuary and home, Ba Hakel. Who? Mizmor 27:4. For he will conceal me, ky soften any, in his shelter, ba saku. During the day, ba yaum, of destructive shepherds and harmful countrymen, ra he will conceal me, causing me to vanish, sathar any, in the protection of his tent and tabernacle, ba sether oholhu. With a sharp crag, ba tsur, he will lift me on high to increase my prominence, rom any. Mizmor 27:5, and then, ada, my stature will rise, rosh any, above my opposition who are rancorous toward me, al oyeb any, on every side, surrounding me, sabib any. I want the sacrifice prepared, Zabak, in his radiant tent and tabernacle, ba oholhu, with the sacrificial offerings killed and presented, zebakim, during Towrah. I will choose to sing, shyr, because I want to make music for the enjoyment, Zamar, of Yahowah, YAHOWah. Mizmor 27:6. Your desire is to listen, Shama, Yahowah, to my voice, Kaul, any, as I call out, reciting an invitation to meet, Kara. You have decided to favor and distinguish me, Wachanan any. Your will is to be overtly focused upon and engaged with me, to sing with me, to communicate through me, and to respond by providing me as an answer, Anna any. Mizmor 27:7. Regarding you, ada, my thoughts and judgment, leb any, acknowledge, Amar, that you have chosen to call my presence into account, Bakash pana any. Therefore, your appearance, eth pana ada, Yahowah, I consistently seek, request, and inquire about, Bakash. Mizmor 27:8. You will not conceal your presence from me for a prolonged period of time, al sathar pana adamin any. You are not inclined to spread out or elongate frustration, resentment, or a grievance, al nada baf, with your coworker and associate, ebed ada. You have been, Haya, my helper, my influential and powerful assistant, Ezra any. You will never abandon me, al nadash any, just as you will never reject or forsake me, al azab any, O God, Elohi, of my deliverance, emancipation, and salvation, Yasha any. Mizmor 27:9. It is true, ky, my father, of any, and my mother, any, had rejected and forsaken me, as of any, but, Yahowah, having taken me in, will always be with me, as af any. Mizmor 27:10. You want to guide and teach me, Yara any, your way, Derek any, Yahowah. Your will is to reliably lead me, Wanacha any, by the upright and level, correct and straightforward, agreeable and elevated, ba mishor, route, arich, on account of, Laman, my adversaries, sour any. Mizmor 27:11. You have decided not to give me over to, al Nathan any ba, the soul of my adversaries, who would diminish, belittle, constrain, and negate me, Nipesh Zar any, who, indeed, will have risen up and become established to take a stand, ky kyum, against me, ba any, to bear false witness, provide deceptive and misleading testimony and commit fraud, ed sheker. They exude, Yafak, injustice and oppression, immorality and ignorance, wrongly plundering, terrorizing, and destroying, chamas. Mizmor 27:12. It is true that, lo, I am certain, knowing what is established, verifiable, and true, Amon. I have looked upon and witnessed, even revealed, the goodness and fairness, the appropriateness and attractiveness, tub, of Yahowah, in the land of the living, ba, Eretz Chaim. Mizmor 27:13. You should choose to confidently place your expectations for a beneficial result, looking forward, kawa, to, Yahowah. You should want to be strong and prevail, to be as tough as you are intense, Chazak. And with your courageous character and reinforced judgment, amitz leb ada, choose to confidently place your expectations for a beneficial result by looking forward, kawa, to, Yahowah. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung /Psalm 27 verse 14. Yod hey wah. When we think of prophets, we tend to perceive uninterrupted communication from God, of the Almighty always having their ear. In actuality, they were like the rest of us. They had families and responsibilities. And this was truer for Dowd than most. Also, with the Navy, their situation was different from ours today. Books were rare. Dowd would have had the Torah available to him and likely a copy of Yahushua/Joshua and the Shabat/Judges but nothing else. By comparison, we have these books plus ready access to Samuel, Kings, Chronicles, the Psalms and Proverbs, as well as a considerable number of prophetic books, including Hosea, Yashaya, Yirmiah, Habakkuk, Zechariah, and Malachi. So, when it comes to listening to Yahowah, we are somewhat advantaged over the Messiah. Amazing as this sounds, it is nonetheless profoundly important and true. It is even true with regard to his Mizmor and Mashal. While Yahowah spoke directly through Dowd and inspired his lyrics, since he shared everything in writing with us, we are all on the same footing, even with regard to his personal revelation. We should, therefore, treasure this opportunity Yahowah has afforded us. For you, Ada, to you and on your behalf, Yahowah, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his Haya, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, I am the essence of what it means to be called out, continually proclaiming the summons to meet while announcing the invitations, and I consistently read and recite because I have been designated and appointed, and I will be known and remembered by the Mikri Y. Kara, I consistently proclaim the meetings to be called out and be welcomed, Kal imperfect first person singular. My sharp crag, Sur Eni, my prominent rock, you are never unresponsive or silent toward me, and you take no action apart from me. Al Charash Min Eni, you never scheme against me nor inscribe anything apart from me, and you are not silent regarding me. Kal imperfect second person masculine singular Joseph, because if you were unresponsive with me and silent regarding me, Pen Chasha Min Eni, then I might be likened to one who governs and speaks in catchy phrases, with my proverbial wisdom and memorable discourse while even compared, Wa Mashal, with those who will be brought down to, I'm Yared, the pit, bore, dungeon and prison. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 28 verse 1. YAHOWAH has invited us to engage in his Berith covenant family and attend his Moedim meetings regarding his eternal testimony and restoring witnesses. But they do us no good unless we are made aware of them and are encouraged to respond. Dowd is not only advancing our awareness, he is a contributor to and beneficiary of the first three and an integral part of the final three. Towrah is about preparing Yisrael for his return on Kippurim to anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant so that he can reign over Sukkah. In this pronouncement, Dowd is calling on Yisraelites to leave corrupt human institutions so that they can answer Yahuwah's invitations to meet and be welcomed into the covenant. Having read the Torah, he is now reciting his Mizmor. In this case, the Tzur prominent and sharp crag may represent Yahuwah, who, because he is reliable, is serving as Dowd's rock. However, with Yahuwah's propensity to achieve his objectives through others, this is more likely the same Tzur crag deployed in the previous psalm, who was being acknowledged for elevating the Messiah's status prior to his return. Either way, the result is the same. Being responsive to what Dowd represents will prevent those who are studious from misconstruing God's purpose. There is the tendency to normalize Dowd, such that he is seen as a king who lived long ago and as nothing more. And because he was neither a conqueror nor a tyrant, his divine accolades are seldom acknowledged. Moreover, because he has been robbed of his significance by Christians to deify Jesus, there is the tendency to think of him as king of the catchy phrases and proverbial wisdom but not as our Savior, the Son of God, or Messiah. Dowd is Kara, the living embodiment of what it means to be called out, or someone known for having fulfilled the Mikri Y. And it is his words that we Kara read and recite to capitalize upon what he has done to bring us into the covenant family. Repeating what he shared previously, Dowd is reaffirming that Yahuwah enjoys hearing him speak of his preferred place in his plans. In addition, when he describes God as the one who is assisting him, Yahuwah is all the more pleased. You want to hear, Shama, you enjoy listening to, Kal imperative second person masculine singular, the sound, Kal, of my generosity, kindness, and compassion, Takan and Eni, of my consideration and love, while requesting help, Ba Shawa, by imploring aid, for me concerning you, Eni, El Ada. In lifting me up, Ba Nasa Eni, my hands and influence, Yad Eni, are for your set apart word, your most special message and your most distinctly uncommon nature, El Dabir Kodesh Ada. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 28 verse 2. When we are about the business of condemning what God disdains while sharing what he cherishes, Yahuwah is committed to assisting us. By prioritizing his message, we demonstrate our compassion. And the more we allow God to help us, the freer we are to read and write, listen and speak, learn and teach. While it should go without saying that God doesn't want to lump us in with those who are working against him, he doesn't necessarily want to withdraw us either. We are a light in the darkness without being overshadowed by it or enveloped in it. You do not want to continually draw me away, dragging me off and prolonging my time, Al Mashik Eni, you will not take me away such that I remain, Kal imperfect, with the guilty and condemnable who are wrong, Imrasha, with those who devise and carry out, Wa, Impal, deceitful and troublesome religious idolatry, on, or those who speak of peace and reconciliation, Daber Shalom, with their culpable countrymen, Imrea, Hem, when perverted calamities, Wa occupy their hearts. Heads, and judgment, Ba Lebab Hem. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 28 verse 3. If Yahuwah removed his most effective spokesman from our troubled and hypocritical world, then how would those who are open to learning find reliable teachers? And should your answer be that they can pick up a Bible and read it, consider how much of it will be spurious and contradictory to Yahuwah's message and how the rest will be inaccurately translated. This is especially pertinent relative to the Shabuah and Teruah ingatherings of the covenant family. In one respect, the earlier, the better because we go from a world at war and in turmoil to living in heaven with our God. But the longer we stay, the better it is for those who are open to learning about Yahuwah and the covenant. And considering that this additional time is short for us relative to eternity and prolongs the lives of the beneficiaries for an infinite duration of time, the cost-benefit analysis is obviously favorable. By saying that those who speak of peace are devoid of it, God has inspired Dowd to infer that rabbis and politicians are hypocrites. They are among the most conflicted and disingenuous of individuals. There is a popular myth among Christians that being forgiving is a virtue and that it leads to a more harmonious world. That is not God's position. He advocates recompense. Your will is to provide them, Nathan Lahem, you intend to offer and give them, with that which is comparable to, Ka, what they have done, Pa'alhem, according to the immoral nature of their foolish endeavors, Wa Ka Roa, Ma'ilhem. Consistent with the ventures they influence, Ka Ma'aseh Yethem, you intend to give it back to them, Nathan Lahem. Your will is to return, Shub, what they have done, rendering recompense and restitution to them, Gemulhem Lahem. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 28 verse 4. There is no other way to be just. If there is no recompense, there is no compassion for the victims. If there is no restitution, crime pays and anarchy reigns. Therefore, to be fair, God will judge the world. And as is usually the case, the thing which separates the condemned from the commended is understanding. Since they do not realize or understand, ky lo, byn,
because they do not discern, apprehend, perceive, distinguish, regard, appreciate, or teach, Kal imperfect, that which pertains to Yahowah's reward and recompense, El Payula Yahowah, or that which concerns the work of his hands, Wa El Maaseh Yadhu, he will tear them down, eliminating them, Harishem. And he will not re-establish them, Wa Lov Banahem, so he will not build them back up, Kal imperfect Jussiv. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 28 verse 5. A time is swiftly approaching when every soul will be placed in one of three categories. In this case, the ignorant will be eliminated, their souls ceasing to exist. At the same time, those who were instrumental in betraying the trust of the people and leading them astray will be cast into Sheol, eternally separated from those who remain. And it is those who understand what Yahowah is offering and expects in return whose souls will endure in Shemaim. Once this occurs, all who are left are covenant and the restored remnant, all of whom are alive and blessed as a result of what Yahowah and Dowd have accomplished on our behalf. Lifted up in love and blessed, Barak, is Yahowah, Yahowah. Indeed, KY, it is certain, he had heard, Shama, the voice, Kaul, the verbal articulation, of my generosity, kindness, and consideration, Takan and Eni, of my favoritism, love, and compassion. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 28 verse 6. The more we extol the realization that we are set apart and special in God's eyes, and thus favored by him, the more our message will resonate with those who yearn to be part of his family. For some very impressive reasons, Dowd remains the most favored among the chosen. When our relationship with Yah is at its peak performance, he is our offense and defense, our ability to prevail without fear of reprisal. We can be bold, knowing that he is not only supporting our efforts but also providing for our safety. Yahowah, Yahowah, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, is my offense, my source of empowerment and fortitude, Az Eni, my source of determined resilience, my stubborn stance, providing me with the ability to accomplish what is intended, desired, and necessary, and my defense, my protective shield, Wa Megan Eni, my protection against attack. In him, Bahu, my head and heart, Leb Eni, trust and rely, Batach, are confident and confide, and I was supported and assisted and was, therefore, able to help, Azar, I have received and provided vital assistance, Peel perfect. And so, Wa, my heart and thinking, Leb Eni, my innermost nature and essence of who I am and what I want, rejoice, alas, are genuinely happy, even jubilant and delighted. With my song, Wa Min Shyr Eni, I exuberantly express my appreciation to him for allowing me to accomplish his will while acknowledging how his influence enabled something exceptionally wonderful to occur for me and for him, Yadahu, I publicly confess his influence and hand in what I have made possible along with my awareness and knowledge of his contribution, denominative of Yad, hand and influence and Yada, knowing and acknowledging, hyphal imperfect first person singular energic none. Jussive paragogicum energicus. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 28 verse 7. It is the best life can be, productive and purposeful, joyful and rewarding. It is a high-stakes game without risk. It is like watching the opposition show up with picks and shovels when God is wielding a nuclear-powered excavator. The question for us to consider when contemplating the full extent of Dowd's trust and Yahowah's assistance is just how far they were willing to go to save us from ourselves. Witnessing Dowd's reliance on and confidence in Yahowah is something beautiful to behold. Their love and respect for one another is beyond our imagination. And as a result, with his Messiah, Yahowah delivers and saves. Yahowah, Yahowah, transliterated as directed by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation, is their source of enrichment and will provide everything they require, fortifying them, Azlahem, while empowering with the strength to prevail, protecting and enabling, Wa Ma'az, making unassailable by offering the needed assistance, delivering salvation, Yeshua, making victorious and liberating, with his, yes, his anointed Messiah. Mashiach hu. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 28 verse 8. It is so peculiar of the religious to have gotten something this essential wrong when it is so plainly stated. Yahowah's Mashiach anointed Messiah is Dowd, who is the prophet and king who wrote this Mizmor song about his relationship with his father. Unfortunately, Jews do not recognize him as HaMashiach and are blindly awaiting another. And Christians worship a misnomer on whom they have transferred a corrupted Greek variation of the title as if it were a last name. To have created the world's most popular religion by getting something this straightforward wrong speaks to the collective stupidity or gullibility of humankind. As such, God damns religion. Mashiach is a uniquely Hebrew concept, one born in the pages of the Torah, which is where it is explained. And I suppose that is why Paul and company removed its origin away from the Torah and forewent an explanation of how the title applied to the counterfeit caricature he was conceiving. He would translate the title into Greek, affording his latest variation of Dionysus a purloined past. But he did not act alone. In fact, since he failed to provide a justification for Jesus Christ, it was left to the Roman Catholic Church to cover over his mistake. But rather than distract from the conclusion of the Mizmor, let's table that analysis until the end of the chapter. God's approach has been clearly stated since the creation of the universe and conception of life. The fulfillment of Chag Matzah in 33 CE, in the Yabel year of 4000 Yah, would have been the only thing Yahowah has done without the assistance of a human co-worker. But such speculation is a waste of time since God just identified the individual who volunteered to serve in this role. This known, the Messiah's motivation would have to have been exemplary because the suffering would be extraordinary. It would only be by focusing on the enormous benefits to be achieved that the sacrifice would be deemed appropriate. And yet here it is, right before our eyes, the most elaborately hidden treasure in human history. How has everyone missed it? We just read that Yahowah empowers his people so that they can prevail while protecting, delivering, and providing salvation with his anointed Messiah.
And there is only one person anointed in this role, and he is the same individual that Yahowah refers to as his Mashiach. Therefore, there is a singular option, one man among billions through whom God delivered on his promise to save his people. For those who trust God, Dowd is our Savior. For those who prefer religion, there is no Savior. That was true then, now, and forever. Yahowah did not provide a checklist with a variety of options. Dowd is the chosen one. In Hebrew, when a word is repeated, as is the pronoun who, his, then the intent is emphatic and often exponential. Dowd is Yahowah's anointed son. He is who is in every sense of the word. HaMashiach as the Messiah's follow-on statement is equally profound. Your will and my overwhelming desire, your decision and my choice, is to accomplish what must be done to save, Yasha, you and I want to facilitate the rescue, deliverance, and sparing, providing victory and salvation by working effectively together as one, hyphal imperative second-person masculine singular paragogic cohortative, your people and family, F.M. Ada. You have chosen to lovingly lift up and bless, Wa Barak, you want to commend and invoke the benefits of favoring, Peel imperative doubled second-person masculine singular, your heir apparent as an inheritance to your children, Eth Nakla, Ada, your possession, property, and portion, your inalienable hereditary rights, because you want to shepherd them, to lead, nurture, and protect the sheep, Wareahem. It is your desire to guide and feed your flock as a friend and companion, Cow. Imperative second-person masculine singular. You want to lift them up, carry them away, and raise them, Wanasa, Hem, you have chosen to uplift and bear them, forgive and honor them, even celebrate with them, Peel imperative, as an enduring witness, add, with the restoring testimony, forevermore, Ha, Aulam, throughout eternity. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 28 verse 9. It is rare, although always revealing, when we encounter multiple expressions of volition in the same statement. Here, the operative verb is Yasha, which means, to liberate, deliver, spare, keep safe, and, most especially, to save. It was written in the cohortative and imperative moods to express first and second-person volition, communicating the desire of the speaker, Dowd, and the listener, Yahowah, to deliver salvation. Further, the hyphal stem reveals that they are collectively committed to making this possible on behalf of their people, and to such an extent, one is enabling the other. And by using the paragogic, Dowd underscored the urgency of their plan to save Yisrael. Therefore, the anointed Messiah said of himself and his father, your will and my overwhelming desire, your decision and my choice, is to accomplish what must be done to save, Yasha, your people, F.M. Ada. There is no other way to accurately render this verb or the implications of the volitional moods denoting the intent. Therefore, just as was the case with the previous admission, we either accept the fact that Yahowah and Dowd jointly decided to deliver on the promise to save Yisrael through this man and in this manner, or we are left without a God, Messiah, and Savior because there is no other credible source from which they can be drawn. If this were just a man, saying it would be one thing, but doing it quite another. But that is not the case here because this man is the acknowledged Son of God, his anointed Messiah, and the King of Yisrael. And as a prophet, his words were inspired by the God with whom he was agreeing and would partner. To make their pronouncement of mutual intent a reality, and to do so in a manner consistent with the Torah and prophets, there would be only one solution, the first 3 Moedim would have to be honored by the second coming of Dowd in year 4000 Yah. This is because, to fit the Torah's pattern, the Passover sacrifice would be honored 40 Yah from when, and in the same location where Abraham and Yitzchak confirmed the covenant, foreshadowing this day. Therefore, Dowd would arrive in Roman-occupied Judea a few years prior to Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim in 33 CE. And that is precisely as he, himself, foretold in his prophecy to Daniel. From this, we can confidently surmise that the Messiah and Son of God was speaking of himself in his 22nd and 88th Psalms when he vividly described what he would endure while fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. And it means that Yahshua was addressing Dowd in Isaiah 9 and 53. Therefore, Dowd is more than the Messiah and Son of God, the shepherd who became king, he is our Savior. Further, this means that the caricature attributed to Jesus Christ was nothing more than a crude counterfeit of the actual Messiah, Son of God, and Savior. There was, therefore, no basis for Christianity. The religion was based upon identity theft and character assassination. The most beneficial act in human history would be buried under a mountain of lies. As such, there was no justification for the first rabbis to promote the false Messiah Bar Kokhba in rebuttal to the Christian fraud. And it was that error in judgment which ultimately led to the destruction of Yehuda, the diaspora, and the Holocaust. With lies piled on top of beguiling deceptions, the world, especially for Jews, turned dark and troubling, and it could have been decidedly different had they read and accepted this prophetic pronouncement. So, let's read through this pronouncement again while contemplating how it affects our relationship with God and the preservation of our souls. And while doing so, let's consider why Dowd wanted to save Yisrael and then ponder why God offered his unqualified approval and support. This is, after all, the only reasonable response since this Mizmor was written by Dowd and these things were stated in his voice. And it is even extant among the Dead Sea Scrolls with no discrepancies present between the oldest witness and the Masoretic text. Yahowah, Yahowah, is their source of enrichment and will provide everything they require, fortifying them, Azlahem, while empowering them with the strength to prevail, protecting and enabling them, Wama'az, delivering salvation, Yeshua, with his anointed Messiah, Mashiach who. Mizmor 28:8. Your will and my overwhelming desire, your decision and my choice, is to accomplish what must be done to save, Yasha, your people and family, F.M. Ada. You have chosen to lovingly lift up and bless, offering these benefits while favoring and commending, Wa Barak, your heir apparent as an inheritance to your children, confirming their inalienable rights, F. Nakla, Ada, because you want to shepherd them, to lead and guide the flock, and to nurture and protect the sheep, Wareahem. You want to lift them up, carry them away, forgiving and raising them, Wanasa, Hem, as an enduring witness through the restoring testimony, ad, forevermore throughout eternity, Ha, Alam. Mizmor/Psalm 28 verse 9. Should you be surprised that the Messiah's pronouncement was so bold and resolute, so far-reaching, all-encompassing in its implications, welcome to the club. Among the most important declarations ever made, it has been neglected for the past 3,000 years. And in all of that time, the obvious conclusions we have been contemplating have been ignored, even among the Jews for whom this message was intended. There is so much valuable information conveyed by Dowd in this pronouncement, let's consider what serving as our Savior would entail. He inferred that, as a result of Yahuwah's Mashiach fulfilling Pesach and Bikurim, God would be able to enrich and empower the covenant's children on Bikurim, providing everything we would need to be productive and prevail in life and while working with him. In this way, Yahuwah would accomplish his primary goal with the consent of his Son, which has always been to save his people so that they can become his family. To achieve this result, Yahuwah would be offering the benefits of the covenant relationship by lifting up and commending his Son as his heir apparent. Dowd would receive and then redistribute the ultimate inheritance. The rights of the firstborn would be shared by all during Bikurim firstborn children, just as was foretold in the Torah. Yahuwah would shepherd his flock by deploying his beloved shepherd, Dowd. The Messiah would guide and protect his father's flock. And then, as a result of Shabuah, the children of the covenant would be lifted up and carried away, ascending to heaven. This is the enduring witness and restoring testimony of our God and his Son. It will stand tested and true forevermore. That is the message of the 28th Mizmor/Psalm. These are lyrics to sing. And while this is wonderful news, as good as divine revelation gets, there is also a sad undercurrent. The greatest of all tragedies was the unrelenting pain Jews inflicted upon their Messiah by failing to appreciate and capitalize upon all he endured to fulfill Chag Matzah. The religions of Judaism and Christianity have made a mockery of his sacrifice, completely denying him credit for the most loving and heroic act ever contemplated, much less accomplished. The religious have muted the message of Father and Son, and in the process, they have misrepresented the Mikri. And so, here again are the lyrics to Dowd's magnificent song. For you, Yada Yahowah, Yahowah, I am the essence of what it means to be called out, continually proclaiming the summons to meet while announcing the invitations, and I consistently read and recite because I have been designated and appointed, and I will be known and remembered by the Mikri, Kara. My sharp crag, Sur Eni, you are never unresponsive or silent toward me, and you take no action apart from me, Al Charash Min Eni, because if you were unresponsive with me and silent regarding me, Pen Chasha Min Eni, then I might be likened to one who governs and speaks in catchy phrases, with my proverbial wisdom and memorable discourse while even compared, Wamashal, with those who will be brought down to, I'm Yared, the pit, Bor. Mizmor 28:1. You want to hear, Shama, the sound, Kaul, of my generosity and compassion, Takanun Eni, even in requesting help, Ba Shawa, for me concerning you, Eni El Ada. In lifting me up, Ba Nasa Eni, my hands and influence, Yad Eni, are for your set-apart word, your most special message and your distinctly uncommon nature, El Dabr Kodesh Ada. Mizmor 28:2. You do not want to continually draw me away, dragging me off and prolonging my time, Al Mashik Eni, with the guilty and condemnable who are wrong, Im Rasha, with those who devise and carry out, impile, deceitful and troublesome religious idolatry, on, or those who speak of peace and reconciliation, Dabr Shalom, with their culpable countrymen, Imrea, Hem, when perverted calamities, Waria, occupy their hearts, heads, and judgment, Ba Lebab Hem. Mizmor 28:3. Your will is to provide them, Nathan Lahem, with that which is comparable to, Ka, what they have done, Pal Hem, according to the immoral nature of their foolish endeavors, Wa Ka Roa, Ma'il Hem. Consistent with the ventures they influence, Ka Ma'aseh Yet Hem, you intend to give it back to them, Nathan Lahem. Your will is to return, Shub, what they have done, rendering recompense and restitution to them, Gemul Hem Lahem. Mizmor 28:4. Since they do not realize or apprehend, they do not understand or regard, they do not even perceive or appreciate, Ky Lo, Byn, that which pertains to Yahuwah's reward and recompense, El Payula Yahuwah, or that which concerns the work of his hands, Wa El Maaseh Yadhu, he will tear them down, eliminating them, Harishem. And he will not re-establish them, Wa Lo Banahem. Mizmor 28:5. Lifted up in love and blessed, Barak, is Yahuwah, Yahowah. Indeed, Ky, it is certain, he had heard, Shama, the voice, Kaul, of my generosity, kindness, and consideration, of my love and compassion, Takanin Eni. Mizmor 28:6. Yahuwah, Yahuwah, is my offense, my source of empowerment and fortitude, my determination, providing me with the ability to accomplish what is intended, desired, and necessary, Az Eni, and my defense, my protective shield, Wa Megan Eni. In him, Bahu, my head and heart, especially my innermost being and most salient motivations, Leb Eni, trust and rely, Batach, and so I was supported and assisted and was, therefore, able to help others, Azar. And so, my heart and thinking at the very core of who I am and what I want, Leb Eni, rejoice and are jubilant, reveling exuberantly and genuinely delighted, alas. With my song and in these lyrics, Min Shyr Eni, I exuberantly express my appreciation to him for allowing me to accomplish his will while acknowledging how his influence enabled something exceptionally wonderful to occur for me and for him, Yadahu. Mizmor 28:7. Yahuwah, Yahuwah, is their source of enrichment and will provide everything they require, fortifying them, Az Lahem, while empowering them with the strength to prevail, protecting and enabling them, Wa Ma'az, delivering salvation, Yeshua, with his anointed Messiah, Mashiach who. Mizmor 28:8. Your will and my overwhelming desire, your decision and my choice, is to accomplish what must be done to save, Yasha, your people and family, Yada. You have chosen to lovingly lift up and bless, offering these benefits while favoring and commending, Barak, your heir apparent as an inheritance to your children, confirming their inalienable rights, Nakla, Ada, because you want to shepherd them, to lead and guide the flock, and to nurture and protect the sheep, Warayahem. You want to lift them up, carry them away, forgiving and raising them, Wanasa, Hem, as an enduring witness through the restoring testimony, forevermore throughout eternity, Aulam. Mizmor/Psalm 28 verse 9. It is embarrassing that Christians and religious Jews have gotten something this essential and plainly stated wrong. Yahuwah's Mashiach anointed Messiah is Dowd. He is the prophet, shepherd, and king who wrote this Mizmor song, explaining God's intent. In spite of being able to read Hebrew, Jews do not recognize Dowd as HaMashiach. They have been beguiled into expecting another. And Christians worship a misnomer and counterfeit on whom they have transferred a corrupted Greek variation of the title as if it were their Jesus Christ's last name. It is such a preposterous proposition, I wanted to share its origins with you, even if it is only the tip of the iceberg. A far more profound truth awaits. This transformation from Dowd being the Mashiach Messiah according to God, to Jesus being the Christ according to men, is so maniacal and twisted that the justification for it wouldn't be conceived until the 4th century CE under the purview of the Roman Catholic Church. It was added to the 8th chapter of Mark and then embellished for the 16th chapter of the entirely plagiarized fraud known today as the Gospel of Matthew. As evidence of this, not a word of what Constantine's principal promoter, a man named Eusebius, composed on behalf of his Roman Catholic overlords in Matthew 16 or Mark 8 is found in any of the 69 pre-Constantine codices containing portions of the Christian New Testament. The earliest evidence of the Gospel of Matthew and Mark, Papyrus 45, was written circa 250 CE in Alexandria, Egypt. It contains the text of Matthew, chapters 20 to 21 and 25 to 26, along with portions of Mark, chapters 4 to 9 and 11 to 12, Luke, chapters 6 to 7 and 9 to 14, John, chapters 4 to 5 and 10 to 11, and Acts, chapters 4 to 17, and thus not a word from the 16th chapter, thereby excluding the religion's most essential citation. And as for Mark 8, P45 contains 8:1, 14 to 25, and 34 to 40 but nothing of the narrative that suspiciously starts with the 27th verse and ends with the 30th. Jesus and his followers went from there to the towns of Caesarea Philippi. As they went, he asked his followers, "Who do people say that I am?" They answered, "Some say John the Baptist and some say Elijah and others say one of the early preachers." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Christ." But Jesus warned, strictly charging them, that they should tell no one of him. Mark 8 verses 27 to 30. Not only is this line devastating to the Christian myth, it appears nowhere prior to Eusebius' 4th century codexes Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. Moreover, Eusebius made a careless mistake, adding additional commentary to the text of Matthew when it was penned 2 to 3 decades after Mark's hearsay account by an impostor. Unwritten information is always lost over time, never gained. Therefore, by adding considerable detail to the much later account composed as an act of plagiarism by someone writing 6 decades after these events took place, it's an obvious fraud. Nevertheless, in the narrative Eusebius composed to justify Christianity in the Gospel of Matthew, he picked up where he left off at the gates of hell and then became a novelist. And as we read this, keep in mind that these men had allegedly been disciples for 3 years and this subject, the most important in Christendom, had never been discussed. Further, there were no Baptists at the time, and even in Christian mythology, John had been beheaded. And Elijah sounded nothing like Gospel Jesus. In fact, his message in opposition to the Lord and the Queen of Heaven destroyed the emerging religion 888 years before it was conceived. And Jeremiah's renewal of the covenant was with Jews, not Gentiles, and it was based upon the integration of the Torah, negating any prospect of a New Testament. And, of course, there were no early preachers because they are a Christian invention and hell has no power or influence over anyone. Clearly, Eusebius wasn't a very intelligent man, and as a result, his Jesus comes across as a nincompoop. I'm surprised that he wasn't compared to Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, and the Easter Bunny. Jesus came into the country of Caesarea Philippi. He asked his followers, "Who do people say that I, the Son of Man, am?" They said, "Some say you are John the Baptist. And some say Elijah and others say Jeremiah or one of the early preachers." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus said to him, "Simon, son of Jonah, you are happy because you did not learn this from man. My Father in heaven has shown you this. And I tell you that you are Peter. On this rock I will build my church. The powers of hell will not be able to have power over my church. I will give you the keys of the holy nation of heaven. Whatever you do not allow on earth will not have been allowed in heaven. Whatever you allow on earth will have been allowed in heaven." Then with strong words he told his followers to tell no one that he was the Christ. Matthew 16 verses 13 to 20, this is so blatantly fraudulent, it's amazing that Christians are so easily duped. Beyond the points previously made, there is no precedence for recognizing someone as the Christ, because this title was not part of any prophecy, prediction, or prior lore. And if he was the returning Mashiach, then his name was Dowd, who, as the Son of God, would not have called himself the Son of Man because that title comes from the demonic tome of Ezekiel. Further, Jesus was neither a Hebrew, Roman, or Greek name, and it would not actually appear as such in the New Testament prior to the early 1600s. While Eusebius and Peter were wrong, and being right matters, you are happy, is an irrelevant and rather absurd response. That which is discerned from our Father in heaven is correct, and this was not. Peter is a crude transliteration of the Greek word Petros, and Gospel Jesus supposedly spoke Hebrew and Aramaic. And as we have discovered in his own prose, Dowd had a crag, and Peter wasn't it. There is no underlying Hebrew word even remotely aligned with church. So, Gospel Jesus could not have had one of those. The closest ancient name to church comes by way of the Odyssey, where Circe, pronounced with the hard ch sound, as the daughter of Helios, the sun, was the goddess who used her sorcery to prevent Odysseus from returning home. But at least like gilded cathedrals, she was a lustrous nymph with a lovely appearance. She not only served wine, with her magic powers, she built herself an imposing palace where, as an enchantress, she became famous for using spells capable of turning men into swine, which proved handy when offering ham for Easter. Further, heaven isn't a nation, and what is allowed on earth is not allowed in Shemaim. As proof, there are no Christians there. Then there is the issue that according to God, Dowd holds the keys. So, this is an achievement of sorts. It isn't every day that someone manages to get everything wrong and yet is believed. It's a miracle. This wondrous achievement duly noted, Christ, Christian, Christianity, and church are all negated by Jesus' closing remark. Then with strong words he told his followers to tell no one that he was the Christ. How did the religion manage to survive that comment? While it is hard to believe, the tripe which follows is even more harmful to the Christian myth, especially with Paul having admitted to having been demon-possessed 3 decades before Matthew was plagiarized and 3 centuries before it was editorialized. From that time on Jesus began to tell his followers that he had to go to Jerusalem and suffer many things. These hard things would come from the leaders and from the head religious leaders of the Jews and from the teachers of the law. He told them he would be killed and 3 days later he would be raised from the dead. Peter took Jesus away from the others and spoke sharp words to him. He said, "Never, Lord. This must not happen to you." Then Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are standing in my way. You are not thinking how God thinks. You are thinking how man thinks." Matthew 16 verses 21 to 23. Since fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim was the sole reason for the Messiah's return, why was Gospel Jesus just now telling the disciples this? And since the Mikri are Yahuwah's, since they are presented in the Torah, and since fulfilling them was Dowd's idea, why would he lie and claim that he would suffer as a result of Jewish religious leaders who taught from the Torah? Why predict bodily resurrection when it's counterproductive and would serve no purpose? Why claim to die and be raised 3 days later when the Messiah's soul never died, when his body was destroyed, and when the duration of time from the conclusion of Pesach to the beginning of Bikurim is only 24 hours? And that's not the worst part. This is. Never, Lord. This must not happen to you. Then Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are standing in my way." This is religion by Dumb and Dumber. And to think, this farce is Dowd's rival as Messiah, Son of God, and Savior. The realization that, by a factor of 1,000,000 to 1, people have chosen to believe, "Don't call me Christ," and his demonic pals instead of trusting Dowd and his father, Yahowah, is so insane. Let's linger here a while longer. There was actually an incriminating pretext to all of this in Matthew 16. As this story unfolds, we are told that the Pharisees and Sadducees, the forerunners of today's ultra-Orthodox rabbis and progressive politicians, had come to stump the counterfeit who came to bear the name Jesus in 17th century Europe. These supposedly dastardly Jewish leaders, as the story is told from the Christian perspective, were scheming against the newly minted man God. So, they tested him by asking him to show them a sign from heaven. Matthew 16 verse 1 NIV. Funny thing, however, they never asked this of Dowd, and he was the genuine article. And had they done so, his answer would have been, "Read my Mizmor." Gospel Jesus, however, wanted to discuss the weather. Although, to be fair, even to the misnomer, Jesus, none of this can be found in a manuscript prior to Constantine and the Romanization of Christianity. It was all written to resolve Jesus, Paul's, and the disciples' glaring omission. There had been no justification provided for Christ, concocted or otherwise. He replied, "When evening comes, you say, it will be fair weather, for the sky is red," Matthew 16 verse 2, and in the morning, "Today it will be stormy, for the sky is red and overcast." You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. Matthew 16 verse 3, "A wicked and adulterous generation looks for a miraculous sign, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah." Jesus then left them and went away. Matthew 16 verse 4. Oops, again. Even if we were to overlook the inability to provide a sign, or the absurd attempt at deflection by addressing the weather, a handful of men does not comprise a generation, religious Jews don't solicit miracles, and Jonah was a false prophet. The entire book bearing his name fails the Torah's Dabram 18 test of divine inspiration. The prophetic accounts of Passover, unyeasted bread, and firstborn children are found in Psalms 22 and 88 and then in Isaiah 53. Dowd wrote extensively on this subject so he would not have punted in this fashion. Even Abraham, who wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, provided a credible answer. So, you could confidently wager your last shekel that the Passover lamb knew it as well. And Yitzchak spoke to Abraham, his father, stating, "My father." And he responded, "Here I am, my son." Then he asked, "I have noted the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb to elevate and enrich the experience?" Then, Abraham answered, "Wa Amar Abraham, God, Elohim, he will be seen, he will reveal, and he will come into view to provide and show, he will actually and consistently reveal, Kal in perfect third-person masculine singular, for himself, Lahu, on his behalf to approach him, the lamb, Ha'ach, to rise as an acceptable sacrifice, La'ola, my son, Ben, Eni, dot. Bears YTH/Genesis 22 verses 7 to 8. That is the answer. There is no other. No doubt, Pharisees and Sadducees would have been looking for the Lamb's arrival. They were not stupid. They knew that this was the right time because they were just days away from Pesach in the Babel year 4000 Yah when it was foretold that this would occur. But unfortunately, had this meeting taken place, rather than recording the actual question and answer, the Roman Catholic Church plastered over it with one of their own, one that hid the truth and promoted a self-serving lie. Beyond the religious drivel, the lone prophecy which speaks of the Messiah arriving and being cut down is briefly mentioned in Daniel 9. But it is not only directed toward Dowd, it was delivered by him. Over the course of 1,000 years, from 1447 BCE through 447 BCE, from Moses to Malachi, the Father in heaven, aka Yahowah, revealed more information regarding what would occur and its significance to our lives than we could process over a lifetime, and yet, never once did he mention that the Passover lamb would be the Christ. So, since Yahowah most assuredly did not reveal this corruption of his prior testimony, who did? I'll take the greatest deceivers for $1,000, Alex. While serving Emperor Constantine, he wrote the most cited line in the Gospel of Matthew. Who is Eusebius? The only informed and rational answer, of course, and the winning answer to the proposed question on jeopardy, is that it was revealed by Eusebius. He is the only one with the means and motive to commit this crime. It is one that has cost billions their souls, Jews and Christians alike, while ushering in the most anti-Semitic and oppressive institution since Imperial Rome. And upon this lie, the Christian church would be built. Not in Jerusalem, of course, but in Rome, even though this was written to serve Emperor Constantine in Constantinople. Earlier, I mentioned that the keys to unlock heaven's door were held by Dowd. But they were not given to him by anyone because he earned them. And these keys control access to everything pertaining to the house and family of Dowd, including Yehudah and Yisrael, the city of Dowd and the planet Earth, the home of Yahuwah on Moriah, the expanse of the universe, and breadth of the heavens. Speaking of how he would reward Hezekiah for having re-established the observance of Pesach and Matzah, God revealed in Yashayah/Isaiah 22 verse 22, Then I will set the key of the house of Dowd on his shoulder. When he opens, no one will shut. When he shuts, no one will open. Thereby, Jerusalem was protected from the Assyrian assault in 711 BCE. But the truth was of no interest to the Roman Catholic Church. In fact, it remains an obstacle to overcome. Likewise, Yahuwah, Yashayah, Jerusalem, and Yehudim meant nothing to them, only Dowd, because without plundering him, there would be no Christ, Son of God, Christian, or Church. The institution most at odds with Yahuwah and his Torah, the one which would preclude billions from entering heaven and send thousands to hell, was justified upon this sleight of hand, an incredulous but well-placed lie. And this is not a trifling error because these would represent the most beneficial days of all time. The Messiah had returned to make his people immortal and perfect children of the covenant. His Basar body would fulfill Passover while his Nepesh soul carried our guilt to Sheol, never to be seen again. The most beneficial sacrifice in human history was fulfilled as proclaimed throughout the prophets, both in Dowd's Mizmor and in the Torah of Moses. We even have a marvelous accounting of events presented in Yashayah. No further explanations were needed. Dowd knew full well that the reason for his sacrifice was to honor God's promise to Abraham and provide the benefits of the covenant. This ordeal had nothing to do with the Jewish elders or the chief priests, of which there was only one. They were irrelevant. And had there been any teachers of the Torah at the time, they would have precluded this gibberish from being postulated and popularized. The Torah explains why he would be sacrificed on Moriah in Jerusalem during Pesach in the Babel year of 4000 Yah. The prophets even reveal his identity. The voluntary victim actually foretold his arrival, accurate to the week, month, and year. The pain would be inflicted by Imperial Rome, which evolved directly into the Roman Catholic Church. But to cover up their complicity in their crime, their favored alibi became, blame the Jews. The body of the Passover lamb was killed, in fact, executed. Its death occurs to provide an extension of life to those celebrating the Mikra. It would defeat the purpose if the body of the lamb came back to life. It might have also been a little weird to have feasted on the lamb and incinerated its remains later that night, only to see all of the little lambies emerging intact and animated from the ashes 2 days later. Resurrections were part of Dionysus' story and that of the others like Osiris, Tammuz, and Bacchus. To make the newly minted Christ similarly magical and illustrious as them, and worthy of Greek and Roman veneration, he would also have to rise from the dead. Dowd's portrayal of what he had decided to achieve was brilliantly and cogently stated in the 28th Psalm. However, should it not be sufficient for some, my advice would be to reconsider the 89th Mizmor and rediscover Dowd's place in God's plans. It is so vital to our understanding, you will find it in Yada Yahowah Volume 7 and Coming Home Volumes 1 and 2. Much of it is also repeated in Twistianity Volume 4 and Babel Volumes 1 and 3. Or you can stay the course because I'm going to present it yet again at the conclusion of the next chapter. Within it, there is no mention of a Jesus or a Christ. But God has a lot to say about his Son, the Messiah, and returning King. When reading the 89th Mizmor from the proper perspective, it is definitive regarding the identity of the Nepesh who volunteered for this mission. And to my thinking, it is the crescendo of the most inspiring lyrics ever composed. It is Dowd's song. Yod Hey Wah Hey.